Chapter 1978. 1978 King 1978. Greetings to the Dragon King. At this moment, these 4 words resounded throughout the sky above the Lingxiao treasured palace. When everyone in the world saw this scene through the satellite, they were extremely shocked. All the disciples of the Lingxiao treasured palace and all the elites of Earth knelt there at this moment and shouted these 4 words loudly. Everyone understood in their hearts that the Real King had appeared. He was the Dragon King. In this dilapidated and desolate Lingxiao treasured palace, another new king had appeared in the sky. The blood rain continued to fall from the sky. The thunder seemed to be calling for the birth of a king. Wang Xian stood there and looked at the tens of millions of people kneeling in front of him. A smile appeared on his face. He looked at the front of the Lingxiao treasured palace. There, a figure felt the Dragon King's gaze. His body began to tremble and a large amount of sweat instantly formed on his back. But a terrifying energy landed on his body out of thin air. The former number 1 divine son of the Lingxiao treasured palace followed the gods in the sky and dissipated. The people around the number 1 divine son of the Lingxiao treasured palace felt this scene and their faces were filled with fear. Their bodies were trembling violently. They raised their heads and looked ahead. "Get up." Wang Xian waved his arm indifferently. An extremely powerful force made them stand up immediately. "Let's go." Wang Xian looked at his subordinates and spoke to them. Then he flew straight down. Let's go." Mo Sha smiled sinisterly and followed behind him. They flew toward the location of Jiang City. Xiao Ran and the others followed behind, flying downwards. Behind them, in the Lingxiao Palace, everyone watched this scene in awe, until the Dragon King and the others completely disappeared from sight. Next, this world is once again enveloped by the Dragon King. The gods are dead, and those who flee are fleeing. The lofty Lingxiao Palace is completely destroyed, and blood rain falls from the sky. A new king is born. How can there be such a terrifying existence in the world? The Dragon King is clearly a native of Earth. How can he fight against the gods who have lived for tens of thousands of years? More than 10 years ago, the Dragon King's might enveloped the entire world. The world revered the Dragon King, and now, it's still the same. When the Dragon King's figure completely disappeared, some people muttered. Everything that happened today shocked them. All the gods in the sky, more than 20 of them, were all killed. The heavens and earth mourned and the gods died. However, not a single one of the Dragon King's subordinates died. The Invincible 100,000 heavenly soldiers and generals were all killed. The 40,000 to 50,000 warriors of the Holy Warrior Army were all killed. The day of the alliance between the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church became the day that they fell from the altar. Although some gods had escaped, it was difficult to fight against the current Dragon King. The disciples of the Lingxiao treasured palace were in a daze. Back then, they were high and mighty because of the background of the Lingxiao treasured palace, but now, Xiao Ran is the real crown prince. No, Xiao Ran has already become a god, and he has a divine weapon in his hand. Some of the divine sons and disciples in the Lingxiao treasured palace had bitter expressions on their faces. In the past, Xiao Ran was just an ordinary disciple who was not even ranked in the Lingxiao treasured palace. However, the Dragon King's return not long ago had greatly increased his strength. Even so, he was only about the same as them. In fact, they still did not put Xiao Ran in their eyes. After all, there was a huge gap between the Dragon King and the Lingxiao treasured palace. But now, Xiao Ran had lit the divine fire and held the divine weapon in his hand. The Dragon King's might shook the world. At this moment, the internet was even more explosive. The entire world was talking about this battle. Everyone was talking about the Dragon King. Even the gods were frowning as they looked at the messages in deep thought. The Dragon King had single-handedly destroyed the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. His strength was even more terrifying. Next, they had to think about how to face the Dragon King. Wow, there are so many treasures. Wang Xian didn't pay any attention to the commotion outside. On top of the villa, Hua Er and Kai Er were looking at the treasures one by one with glowing eyes. There were a total of 8 divine artifacts that were extremely precious to gods. There were all kinds of elixirs and spiritual herbs. There were countless of them. There were even 7 to 8 spiritual herbs of the godly state. This made the 2 little girls look excited. Take whatever you like. Wang Xian patted the 2 little girls' heads and said with a smile, Daddy is the best. I want this spiritual herb. I want one too. I want this. The 2 little girls were picking and picking with smiles on their faces. Hee hee. Wang Xian smiled at the side. Sensing the huge changes in the Dragon Palace, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. This time, the biggest reward from killing the gods was not the elixirs, herbs, and divine artifacts, but the divine kingdoms and corpses. Among the 22 corpses of the gods, the highest was Luke Owen's corpse. Although he escaped with a drop of divine blood, most of the energy was still in his body. One of the corpses that ignited 5 wisps of divine fire, one of the 4 wisps of divine fire, and 3 of the 3 wisps of divine fire. The rest were gods who had ignited 2 wisps of divine fire. These corpses could increase the number of god-level experts in the Dragon Palace by at least a dozen. Apart from these, there were 3 fire-type gods, 2 thunder-type gods, 2 metal-type gods, and 2 darkness-type gods among them. The members of the Demon War Division, along with the fire-type and thunder-type divinities, could turn into a berserk dragon. Aochi and the other members of the Thunder Department, along with their darkness and fire godheads, could turn into wild dragons. The Firehammer clan could turn into the strongest forged dragon of the Dragon Palace, the Fire Gold Dragon. The strange demon could turn into a thorned dragon with its darkness godhead. These improvements were a huge change for a member of the Dragon Palace. Just like the most ordinary Firehammer clan. If they were converted into Fire Gold Dragon seeds and given godly level materials, they would be able to forge a divine weapon. Aochi's advancement to the Berserk Dragon seed would be the same as Ao Chitian and Ao Xingmu. He would be able to fight across 3 levels. Once the members of the Dragon Palace used up all these resources, they would receive a huge improvement. Apart from these corpses, the Divine Kingdoms would also be a huge improvement for the Dragon Palace and Ao Crab. At this moment, Wang Xian could already feel that the Dragon Palace was undergoing a huge change. Currently, the Dragon Palace lacked the 3 Divine Kingdoms of the Thunder, Light, and Wood attributes. All of them had been gathered. The Dragon Palace had already devoured all the Divine Kingdoms of the 9 attributes. Now, the Dragon Palace was already improving. When the level 5 Dragon Palace was upgraded to level 6, there would be an earth-shaking change. With the improvement of the Dragon Palace, I will be able to directly lift up the Divine Kingdoms. It's time for me to make a trip to the Transcendence continent. When the time comes, I will move the Dragon Palace to the ocean on Earth. Wang Xian thought to himself. This time, he would be able to advance to the godly state completely. Once the kingdom of God was lifted, with his strength, he would be able to fight against a god with 5 wisps of divine fire. Chapter 1979. 1979. In 1979, the Dragon Palace was upgraded and the Kingdom of God was lifted up. Let's go out for a while. Huar, Kair, you guys stay with Xiao Ran and the rest for the next few days. Wang Xian spoke to the 2 disgruntled girls for a while before flying straight towards the Pacific Ocean. The Dragon Palace was being upgraded. Wang Xian rushed over now to upgrade his strength. He had a premonition that the upgrade of the Dragon Palace this time would bring about a huge change. After all, those below the godly state were all ants. The transformation of the Dragon Palace into the godly state was the biggest change. A group of members of the Dragon Palace followed behind and flew toward the location that connected to the supernatural mainland. Due to the changes in the Earth's crust, that location was completely under the sea. It was impossible for anyone to discover this place. Wang Xian came to the entrance and entered the supernatural mainland directly. Phew! When he arrived at the sea area of the extraordinary mainland, Wang Xian scanned his surroundings with a smile. It had been almost a year since he went to Earth. During this 1 year, his improvement could be said to be tremendous. But he led the members of the Dragon Palace and teleported away quickly. A few minutes later, Wang Xian arrived above the Dragon Palace first. At this moment, all the members of the Dragon Palace were suspended in the air. They looked at the Dragon Palace, which was undergoing tremendous changes in shock. The Dragon Palace was expanding at a terrifying speed. The Dragon Palace, which was hundreds of kilometers in radius, had now expanded to thousands of kilometers. The height of the ocean-pacifying needle had reached about 10,000 meters. The Dragon King Palace, the Dragon Transformation Pool, the Dragon Field, and other places had all expanded by 3 or 4 times. The Dragon Caves were emitting a mysterious light. Behind the Dragon Throne, the ancestral tree had also received tremendous growth due to the improvement of the Dragon Palace. Even the Endless Wood, the Soul-Returning Wood, the Servitude Tree, and the Nirvana Lightning Wood had produced many fruits. This time, the number of fruits was 3 to 4 times more than the previous time. But at this moment, Wang Xian suddenly realized that an area had suddenly appeared beside the Dragon Transformation Pool. In this area, different buildings were slowly emerging. These buildings were like insect nests. The densely packed insect nests were similar to dragon nests. There were a total of 200,000 of them. Ding! Congratulations, host. The Dragon Palace has devoured 9 divine kingdoms with different attributes. Its level has been upgraded to level 6. Ding! Congratulations, host. The Dragon Palace has unlocked the building, Dragon Nest. Ding! Congratulations, host. All the attributes of the Dragon Palace have been doubled. At this moment, the sound of system notifications rang out one after another, causing Wang Xian's eyes to flash with astonishment. Dragon Palace, Level 6. Dragon Master, Wang Xian, Longevity 9 Stage Yin-Yang 5 Elemental Divine Dragon. Building. Dragon King Hall, Level 6, increases the cultivation speed and recovery speed of the Dragon King by 192 times. Dragon Transformation Pool, Level 6, absorbing dragon blood can give birth to a dragon seed, Divine Crystal, 4575454322. Dragon Gate, Level 6, a fish can only become a dragon after leaping through the Dragon Gate, effective against creatures below the Eternal Lord level. Ocean Pacifying Needle, Level 6, Pillar of the Dragon Palace, pacifying 4,000 kilometers of calm in the Dragon Palace, increasing the combat strength of the members of the Dragon Palace by 1,000%. Dragon Cave, Level 6, with 100,000 Dragon Caves, the cultivation speed of the creatures in the Dragon Cave will be increased by 128 times. Dragon Field, Level 6, practice martial arts in the Dragon Field, increase comprehension by 64 times. Dragon Array, Level 6, Dragon Palace Array, concealment, defense, gathering of spiritual energy, wormhole, detection, attack. Spiritual items. Ancestral Tree, Level, able to return the soul of creatures below the Eternal Lord level. Activate the spiritual intelligence of creatures. Increases the speed of fire attribute cultivators by 400%. Increases the speed of wood attribute cultivators by 400% and lightning attribute cultivators by 400%. Annex. Dragon Transformation Pool to nurture dragon species. Current dragon species: golden swordfish, thunder shrimp, demon monkey, strange demon, light thorn, hydra, dragon turtle, yaksha, clam girl, golden lobster, starwood dragon species, fire phoenix dragon species. Special buildings. Dragon Nest, Dragon of Devouring, none. Dragon of Devouring, energy consumption can be used to create its own insect-like species. The queen insect feeds on all kinds of metal materials. The information about the Dragon Palace appeared in Wang Xian's mind. Looking at the Dragon Palace, which had all its attributes increased, a hint of excitement appeared in Wang Xian's eyes. Some of the buildings in the Dragon Palace had also undergone subtle changes. For example, The teleportation of the dragon formation had turned into a wormhole. The dragon nest, which was a special building, had been added, as well as the so-called Dragon of Devouring. A level 6 dragon palace could completely withstand the attacks of anyone below the level of the Eternal Lord. After the upgrade, the dragon palace emitted a terrifying divine might. In the surroundings, countless sea creatures from the extraordinary sea were worshipping in this direction. Next, it's time for me to ignite the divine fire. Wang Xian took a deep breath. Roar! A dragon's roar came from his mouth. Wang Xian transformed into his dragon form and raised his head to roar toward the sky. The terrifying pressure spread in all directions. Buzz! A wisp of divine fire rose above Wang Xian's head. Rise up, Dragon Palace, turn into the kingdom of dragons. Wang Xian let out a low roar. The entire gigantic dragon palace was shrouded in divine light. The dragon palace that was over 1,000 kilometers in circumference slowly rose up and flew toward the sky above him. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At this moment, the heaven and earth changed drastically. A 7-colored ray of light drifted over from afar. Its coverage area reached over 100,000 kilometers in circumference. The divine kingdom that was more than 1,000 kilometers slowly floated above Wang Xian. Roar! Wang Xian felt the majestic power coming from the dragon palace, and his face revealed an excited expression. Finally, he could raise the divine kingdom in his hand high up. Igniting the divine fire and lifting the divine kingdom was his first step into the universe. Wang Xian let out an excited roar. The roar of the dragons might reverberated across an area of more than 100,000 kilometers. On the dragon palace, waves of majestic energy entered his body. Wang Xian's body grew again. It grew to a length of 6,000 meters. The 7-colored dragon scales, the majestic dragon head, the real divine item. At this moment, Wang Xian felt that he could draw an endless stream of energy from the dragon palace. He felt that even if he was constantly fighting, he would not feel tired. The dragon palace had turned into a divine kingdom and became his source of strength. In the void where there was no spiritual energy, he could also unleash a terrifying strength. At this moment, above the dragon palace, the shadows of 9 divine dragons suddenly circled. With a thought from Wang Xian, the dragon palace actually shrank rapidly. It contains the heaven and earth. Excitement shot out from Wang Xian's eyes. It contained the heaven and earth like a spirit storage bag. Even though the dragon palace was 1,000 meters in size, the space inside was still 1,000 kilometers in size. If I summon the dragon palace to fight, he mumbled and his body shook. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At this moment, 9 gigantic pillars of heaven were erected around him. Each pillar of heaven was 100,000 meters tall. Each pillar was 10,000 meters in size and had a divine dragon entrenched on it. In the sky above the pillars, the dragon palace that was 1,000 kilometers in radius appeared. Hiss! If I summon the kingdom of God and unleash my full strength, I can easily kill Ao Crab. Wang Xian's face was filled with excitement. With the transformation of the dragon palace into the kingdom of God, he would be able to fight 6 levels higher. Heaven-defying. Chapter 1980. 1980 1980 Promotion of Members of Dragon Palace. Name, Wang Xian. Race, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Divine Dragon, Mandragon Unity. Level, a wisp of divine fire, 5th change of divine dragon transformation. Divine Crystal, 335422221/100000000. Supernatural ability, ruling the water tribe below one's level. Devouring creatures to extract divine crystals. Control of the 5 elements. Cultivation method, divine dragon transformation. Supernatural ability, soul capture, spirit attachment, Yin-Yang 5 elements dragon eyes. Aspect, 5 elements grinding, dragon kingdom in the palm, dragon head under the heavens, dragon body of 10,000 miles, yin-yang poles, yin-yang 5 elements alms bowl, divine dragon tail swing. Divine kingdom, dragon palace. Dragon palace owned, level 6. Dragon palace members, 26,433. Looking at his own attributes, Wang Xian revealed an excited look. Now that the divine dragon transformation had reached the 5th transformation, he could be considered to have entered the growth stage of the divine dragon tribe in the past. However, as the first 7-colored divine dragon in the history of the divine dragon clan, the 7 attributes, together with the divine kingdom of the dragon palace, allowed him to fight 6 levels above him. What kind of concept was this? After Wang Xian summoned the divine kingdom, he could fight against the god who had ignited 7 wisps of divine fire. He could even kill Ao Crab easily. The improvement this time could be said to be a huge qualitative change. The 6,000-meter-long body of the divine dragon was shimmering with divine radiance under the sunlight. The dragon palace that stood on the 10,000-meter-long dragon pillar in the sky was incomparably majestic. It suppressed the entire world. What's going on over there? Has the Dragon King become a god? Or has the Dragon King improved again? At the seaside of the extraordinary sea, some people from the extraordinary continent looked at this scene with shock on their faces. The Dragon King was getting stronger. Phew! Wang Xian sensed the dragon palace that had transformed into a divine kingdom. He smiled and placed it into the sea. After the dragon palace had transformed into a divine kingdom, he could store it back into his body and place it anywhere. With just a thought, he could summon it back for battle. Congratulations on becoming a god, Dragon King. All the members of the Dragon Palace bowed to Wang Xian respectfully. Get up and take a look at the upgraded Dragon Palace. Wang Xian said with a smile on his face. He moved and arrived at the Dragon King Hall of the Dragon Palace. The spiritual energy in the current Dragon King Hall was 192 times that of the outside world. The concentration of the spiritual energy in the blood of the 4 or 5 wisps of divine fire god was only tens of times that of the Dragon Palace. There was a huge gap between them and the Dragon Palace. The most eye-catching thing in the Dragon King's palace was the ancestral tree behind the dragon throne. The ancestral tree, which was only a dozen meters in size back then, had reached a height of 1,000 meters after the upgrade of the Dragon Palace. There were many branches on the branches of the ancestral tree. There were 8 fruits hanging on each branch. These fruits were a huge treasure to the Dragon Palace. Look at the dragon nest. Wang Xian looked at the back of the dragon transformation pool. There was a special building there. The dragon nest was originally called the insect nest. Now that it had merged with the Dragon Palace, it was called the Dragon Nest. The most powerful aspect of the insect race was their insect nest and mother insect. Using the insect nest, they could quickly reproduce their underlings. As long as they had enough materials, they could improve quickly. The greatest danger of the Zerg was that they could devour a planet at a terrifying speed when they entered it. When this planet lost all its metallic materials and energy, it would turn into a Death Star. No living beings could be born on the Death Star. Ao Crab. Wang Xian sized up the nests in the dragon nest. In the middle of the nest, there was an extremely hideous mother nest. The mother nest occupied an area of about 10,000 meters. It was a huge head with pitch-black horns and black scales all over its body. It had a body of about 5,000 to 6,000 meters and looked similar to the bone dragon. However, it was much uglier and more hideous than the bone dragon. This was the image of the mother nest, also known as the devouring dragon. As he sized up the nest, he shouted at Ao Crab. Dragon King. Ao Crab flew over and sized up the dragon nest in front of him with a burning gaze. Perhaps it was due to Ao Crab's bloodline, he had some similarities with the characteristics of demons and insects. It was obviously the best choice for Ao Crab to become the devouring dragon. Enter and see if you can increase your strength. Wang Xian gave him an order. It's the Dragon King. Ao Crab nodded his head. His body moved and transformed into the form of a crab. Splash! Following that, small crabs crawled out from his body one by one and rushed crazily towards the surrounding nests. These 4 to 5 meter-sized small crabs already possessed the strength of a level 8 demigod. There were a total of 30,000 small crabs. Such a terrifying improvement speed was much faster than the improvement speed of the members of the Dragon Palace. Ao Crab's 10,000-meter-long body moved and entered the dragon nest with some excitement. Evolving. When Wang Xian saw Ao Crab entering the mother nest and the message that came from inside, he smiled. After the evolution, Ao Crab would be even stronger. At that time, he should be able to match his strength. Prime Minister Gure. Wang Xian shouted again. Dragon King. Prime Minister Gue's figure appeared beside him immediately. Use all the godheads and fruits on the ancestral tree to increase the strength of the members of the Dragon Palace. Focus on the evolution of the Berserk Dragons and the Starwood Combat Division. Wang Xian gave him an order. It's the Dragon King. Prime Minister Gue nodded. 8 fruits and a group of godheads could increase the number of Berserk Dragon species in the Dragon Palace by 10. It could increase the Firehammer clan by 2 Fire Gold Dragon species and the Strange Demon clan by 2 Thorn Dragon species. The remaining corpse resources could increase the Starwood Dragon species by 2 Godly State members. After this upgrade, the strength of the Dragon Palace would receive another huge boost. After the upgrade of the Dragon Palace, if I were to face the Holy Church and the Soaring Heavens Treasured Palace again, I would be able to kill all the gods within 3 minutes. Wang Xian thought to himself. He was in a great mood as he rose to the sky above the Dragon Palace and looked down at the underwater palace that was more than 1,000 kilometers long. After they upgraded, Wang Xian was ready to transfer the Dragon Palace to Earth. The resources on Earth were much more than those on the supernatural continent. If there were any more changes on Earth, the Dragon Palace would control all the resources. As for the other gods, if they were not convinced, they could suppress them directly. With the current strength of the Dragon Palace, they could do it. While the members of the Dragon Palace were promoted, on Earth, everyone was discussing about the Dragon King for a few days. They were discussing the war. Even now, when they raised their heads, they could still see the shattered skyscraping treasured palace in the sky. Every time they raised their heads, their hearts were filled with shock. In these few days, Xiao Ran returned to the Dragon Gate Academy and became the principal of the academy. Ji Lingfei became the vice principal of the academy. After the news was announced, the Dragon Gate Academy immediately became the strongest force in the world. 2 gods as the dean of the academy, and behind the Dragon King, who dared to provoke. Chapter 1981. 1981 Wandering the Earth. The Dragon King's title of king seems to be the same as more than 10 years ago. He hasn't unified the world. Even if he has invincible strength, he hasn't established any forces or rules. With the current strength of the Dragon King and the others, there might not be anything that can attract him. Time slowly passed. Ever since the Dragon King had destroyed 2 major forces, the entire world had once again become peaceful. This time, it was much calmer than before. The gods who had lit the divine fire and the true dragon sons of heaven were keeping a low profile. They didn't even dare to be too arrogant. Now, most of the gods had gathered around the 2 tombs at the North and South Poles. Especially the South Pole. Not a single person had entered the Lightwing God Lord's tomb yet. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. A month later, a major event occurred. A true dragon son of heaven entered the vast starry skies and never returned. This news caused everyone to speculate. Very quickly, people thought of Earth. Before the Dragon King fought against the 2 major forces, the Soaring Heavens Treasured Palace wanted to lead Earth into the boundless galaxy with great power. But now, the Soaring Heavens Treasured Palace is almost in ruins. Earth has stopped spinning in the unknown starry skies. We can be sure that there are no life planets in a large area around our Earth. There should be many life planets in the boundless galaxy. The gods must be trying to enter places where there are many living planets. That's why they flew out of Earth and into the starry skies. Earth is still too small for the gods. Now that the Dragon King is on Earth, he's intimidating all the gods. The gods don't want to be restricted, so they want to leave Earth. This has little to do with us mortals. If Earth enters the boundless galaxy, it might be a good thing for us, or it might be a bad thing. On the internet, countless people were discussing that Earth had already stopped in the void, so it didn't have much of an impact on the people on Earth. But for those who had followed the gods to descend, they were full of panic. Many people had followed the gods here for opportunities. They had their own families in the boundless galaxy, and now that Earth had stopped, they couldn't go back at all. This made some people very dissatisfied with the Dragon King. However, they didn't dare to show it. The power that the Dragon King had now was too strong. Has that guy obtained the star map? He actually dared to charge out directly. It must be known that there might not be any life planets in the billions of light years nearby. If he encounters cosmic storms, cosmic lights, or something like that, even a God realm expert wouldn't be able to withstand it. At this moment, 4 figures were sitting in a room at the North Pole. One of them, a young man, said with a frown. It said that the Lingxiao treasured palace's sacred hall and the others used 3 years to descend to Earth. In the middle, more than a dozen gods fell. This was even before the star map. Without the star map, the death rate would be even higher. Another young man beside him knocked on the table lightly. Now that Earth has stopped here and the Dragon King is so powerful, we only have 2 ways. We can find the star map and leave this place, or we can take this planet and continue to advance. But the premise is that the people of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall will lead the way, and the Dragon King won't stop us. It's impossible for the Dragon King not to stop us. Now it's very clear that once Earth really reaches the boundless galaxy, the forces behind the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall will definitely destroy the Dragon King and the others. The Dragon King will definitely not take the risk. Sigh, this is really troublesome. I had originally thought of leaving when Earth was about to enter the boundless galaxy, but now. The 4 figures said somewhat helplessly. Thinking about how they had fallen hundreds of thousands of years ago, and now that they had revived and obtained the Dragon Soul, they had originally thought that they would be able to suppress the world for an entire lifetime. They had never thought that the Dragon King would appear out of nowhere and suppress them, making them extremely fearful. Now they were even more passive. "And this brother, since you are here, show yourself." At this moment, a young man's ears twitched slightly as he looked up. And the other 3 figures were also slightly stunned as they narrowed their eyes. As expected of the true dragon son of heaven, I immediately discovered him the moment I arrived. A middle-aged man in a black robe appeared and looked at them expressionlessly. Oh, who did I think it was? It turns out to be a stray dog from the Lingxiao treasured palace. A young man looked at the middle-aged man in a black robe and said with slight disdain. The middle-aged man in a black robe was stunned and slowly became embarrassed. His chest rose and fell slightly. "For true dragon son of heaven, I represent the Lingxiao treasured palace and the holy church to invite you to join us." "Join you? You're not joking, right? Join you and let the Dragon King torture you?" The black-robed middle-aged man said, but before he could finish, a mocking voice sounded. "You should know that only our Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall have the star map. I can tell you without exaggeration that without the star map, it's almost impossible to enter the boundless star field or any other life star field. Even if we had the star atlas back then, we still lost more than 10 God realm experts, and this was with the help of the experts from our forces." Black Robe continued to say expressionlessly. And then, the 4 young men also put away their mocking expressions. The god of the Lingxiao treasured palace was also telling the truth. "Continue to bring Earth to the boundless star field. The forces behind us can guarantee that after we enter, they won't attack you. We're even willing to give you some resources." The black-robed middle-aged man continued. "Hee, then what do we need to do?" A young man smiled and continued to ask. Stop the Dragon King from disturbing you? I think it's better to forget it. Even if the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall join forces with all the gods, they won't be enough to fight the Dragon King. Before we have the strength to fight against Dragon Bay, we won't send ourselves to our deaths. Before the black-robed middle-aged man could answer, the youth beside him said directly, "What if we have the strength to fight against the Dragon King? Do you all want to join us?" The black-robed middle-aged man looked at them and suddenly asked, "Huh?" The four youths who were sitting there were slightly stunned and slowly stood up. "When you have it, come and find us." The four of them looked at each other and said expressionlessly, "All right." The black-robed middle-aged man nodded slightly and disappeared in a flash. "If they really have the strength to fight against the Dragon King, we—" Seeing the black-robed middle-aged man leave, a figure frowned and asked faintly, "We still don't know the Dragon King's attitude. If they really have the strength, we can consider it." A young man said with a twinkle in his eyes. The four of them were members of the True Dragon Association. After the skyscraping treasured palace and the sacred hall were almost destroyed by the Dragon King, the True Dragon Association had one more member. There were two of them, but one of them broke into the starry sky. Chapter 1982. 1982, the final trump card of the Lingxiao Holy Church. How is it? The Holy Church was located in a mountain range in the west. At this moment, there were 9 figures sitting inside the Holy Church. Yuan Kuei, who was in the center, looked at the black-robed middle-aged man and asked with a frown. "As expected, before we have the power to fight against the Dragon King, all the gods will not join us. The Dragon King's force is too strong." The black-robed middle-aged man shook his head slightly, his eyes filled with helplessness. Right now, the people of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall were cowering in the sacred hall and didn't dare to go out. They were afraid that the Dragon King would lead his subordinates to attack them. In the boundless star field, even if an expert who has ignited 8 or 9 wisps of divine fire arrives here, it will take at least 2 years. This time is too long. Right now, we only have one way. Luke Owen sat beside Yuan Kuei and said with a gloomy face. Right now, his body looked like a child. The energy in his body was extremely weak, and his strength was only at the demigod realm. He sat there and looked a little comical. He wasn't the only one who looked like this in the sacred hall. After Luke Owen finished speaking, he looked at a young man next to him. In the sacred hall, everyone was looking at that young man. "We've already received orders from the higher-ups. We can help you recover your cultivation with all our might, but remember your promise." Yuan Kuei said to the young man, "Don't worry, but you have to remember your promise." A trace of excitement flashed through the young man's eyes as he said to Yuan Kuei and the others, "Don't worry." Yuan Kuei and the others nodded and handed the interspatial rings to the young man one by one. "These are all the resources of our precious skyscraping hall. These are all the resources of our sacred hall. These resources should be enough for you to recover to the level of 7 wisps of divine fire." One by one, the interspatial rings flew to the young man's side. The young man stretched out his hand and checked the resources inside. His eyes were burning with passion. In the past 10 years, Earth had recovered. The resources the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sanctuary had obtained far exceeded everyone's expectations. However, this didn't mean that they could enjoy the resources themselves. They had to keep 50% of the resources and hand them over when they returned to the boundless star area. But now they had to take them all out. The young man in front of them was the god of resurrection that the Lingxiao treasured palace had subdued in a divine country. In front of him, he had the strength of 8 wisps of divine fire. Now, he had ignited 1 wisp of divine fire. As long as he was given enough resources, he could quickly recover to his peak. The last trump card of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall was to use all their resources to recover their strength as soon as possible. At that time, as long as they could suppress the Dragon King, everything they had done was worth it. "I'll go and recover my strength now." It won't be long before I can suppress all of the Dragon King and the others. Ha! The young man took the interspatial rings one by one with an excited expression on his face. With a move of his body, he disappeared. If it weren't for the two eternal God Lord's divine tombs on the planet, Master and the others wouldn't have been willing to take out so many resources. Yuan Kuei looked at the young man who had disappeared and muttered, "At this time, as long as we can destroy that Dragon King, everything will be fine." Luke Owen looked at his own body and a look of hatred appeared on his face. The reason why he had become like this was all because of the Dragon King. Unless we can kill him with 100% certainty, we must not act rashly this time. Yuan Kuei's eyes were also filled with hatred as he growled. Being forced to such a state by a Dragon King was something they would never have imagined. Is there a way to enter the two tombs? Luke Owen looked at a god beside him and asked. No one has entered the South Pole tomb. There are a few main mountain peaks in the North Pole, but no one has entered. The god shook his head. The tomb of the Lord God is not that easy to enter. Yuan Kuei said softly. If we can enter, if we can obtain the Lord God's inheritance, then the little Dragon King has nothing to fear. Luke Owen sighed softly. Soon, the temple was silent. Ha ha, I've finally entered. However, at this moment, in the middle of a mountain in the North Pole graveyard, a young man was trembling as he stared at a statue shrouded in divine light. He was extremely excited as he walked towards the statue, tears welling up in his eyes. This is my opportunity, this is a great opportunity that belongs to me. I was originally a grain of sand in the boundless star field. I followed the gods here, but I'm still like dust. Today, I finally got my chance. I want to ride the wind and break through the 9 heavens. Not long after, I will let my name resound throughout the entire starry sky. Ha! This world, wait for my return. The young man trembled as he walked to the front of the statue. With a plop, he knelt down and kowtowed heavily. One. At this moment, the divine light of the statue shone brightly, enveloping it. A prostrating figure knelt there. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the entire North Pole divine tomb suddenly emitted a majestic pressure. The incomparably terrifying pressure caused everyone in the divine tomb to reveal shocked expressions. What's going on? What happened? What happened in the divine tomb? What's that sound? And this pressure? Shocked voices rang out from within the divine tomb. The gods within the divine tomb also had shocked expressions on their faces as they stared intently at the main peak. Bzzz. At this moment, an irresistible force suddenly landed on their bodies. Everyone's bodies were sent flying out. What's going on? In an instant, over 100,000 people appeared at the entrance of the divine tombs. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. They sized up their surroundings. When they saw that everyone had been expelled, their pupils constricted. How did everyone suddenly get expelled from the divine tomb? What happened? Could it be that someone entered the main peak of the divine tomb? How is this possible? Someone obtained the inheritance within the divine tomb? Otherwise, why would everyone suddenly be expelled? At this moment, everyone was discussing in shock. Even some of the gods were staring in shock. It can't be that someone has really obtained the God Lord's inheritance, right? If that's the case, then it's simply too terrifying. It's even more terrifying than the Dragon King. This earth is becoming more and more terrifying. The expressions of all the surrounding gods were somewhat unsightly. Now that there was a Dragon King on this tiny earth, how could they survive if terrifying experts were to be born? Chapter 1983. 1983 Ancient land reappeared. In the North Pole God tomb, everyone has been expelled. It is suspected that someone has obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord. The eternal God Lord is a realm above the God realm. He can suppress a star field. He is definitely a star field expert. He can directly destroy a life planet. If he can obtain the inheritance of the eternal God Lord, he will be invincible in the world. It is suspected that someone has obtained the inheritance of the God Lord. What is an eternal God Lord? He has a lifespan of 1,000,000 years. He has an almost eternal life. He can suppress a star field. He is a true universe expert. What happened in the North Pole Divine Tomb immediately spread throughout the world. Everyone on the internet was discussing it. Earth, which had been silent for a month, was once again in an uproar because of what happened in the Divine Tomb. After all, the Divine Tomb was a place that even the Dragon King and the other gods could not enter. That was an existence of a higher level. The news quickly spread to every god. The remaining gods of the Holy Church and the Lingshao Treasured Palace also received the news very quickly. When all the gods received the news, their expressions were a little ugly. Even the other godly state experts had extremely ugly expressions on their faces. Right now, Earth already had an existence like the Dragon King that had been suppressing the world for a lifetime. If an expert were to appear now, in the end, the unlucky ones would still be the gods. Even the true dragon sons of heaven were powerless as they looked at this news. Either we leave Earth or obtain the opportunities on Earth. Otherwise, no one knows what changes will happen to Earth. Some gods thought to themselves as they watched the changes one by one. At this moment, they had to consider the future. Whoosh! At this moment, on the Pacific Ocean, many figures were floating in the sky. Wang Xian was floating in the sky with a smile on his face. Beside him, Ao Jian and Ao Qian were standing on the left and right. The rest of the members of the Dragon Palace did not follow them. Ao Jian, Qitian, check the surroundings and see which place is suitable to house the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian said to Ao Qian and Ao Jian. It's the Dragon King. The two of them nodded. After the Dragon Palace is transferred here, find an opportunity to destroy the remnants of the Lingshao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church and get the Starry Sky chart from them. With the current strength of the Dragon Palace, they should be able to gain a foothold in the boundless galaxy. Wang Xian thought to himself as he quickly teleported towards Jiang City. He still had something to ask Ji Lingfei. Furthermore, he had been away for a month. He wondered if the two girls had missed him. But Jiang City has undergone earth-shattering changes. Dragon Gate Academy has expanded by more than 10 times compared to before. When Wang Xian arrived above Jiang City, he immediately noticed the changes in the entire city. It was not an exaggeration to call the current river city the most prosperous world. Longmen Academy, which had two gods overseeing it, was backed by the invincible strength of the Dragon King. Now, Longmen Academy was the most powerful force on Earth. Sensing that the two little girls were also at Longmen Academy, Wang Xian's figure flashed as he came directly to the building in the middle of Longmen Academy. Ah, little brother, you still know how to come back. Huar saw Wang Xian suddenly appearing beside them and shouted at him with obvious dissatisfaction. Bang! Little girl! Wang Xian knocked her head directly. Wah, you left for a month straight away. Now that you're back, you want to hit me? SOB, sob. Huar let out a weird cry. Wang Xian was speechless as he took out two serval fetuses and handed them to the two little girls. Ugh. When the two girls sensed the mysterious power contained in the serval fetuses, they were slightly shocked. They immediately closed their eyes. Master! Master! Xiao Ran and Ji Lingfei, who were at the side, greeted him respectfully. How is it? Did anything big happen recently? Wang Xian asked them with a smile as he sat on a chair inside. Master, something big has indeed happened. At the North Pole Divine Tomb, everyone who entered the Divine Tomb was expelled. Many people guessed that someone had obtained the inheritance of the Master of God. Xiao Ran frowned slightly and said, all of them were expelled? Wang Xian was slightly stunned. A hint of seriousness appeared on his face. If someone had really obtained the inheritance of the Master of God, even he would have to be more careful. After all, that person was a Master of God. It was possible for him to leave behind some extremely terrifying treasures. "Teacher, I have something here too." At this moment, Ji Lingfei, who was at the side, also said with a slight frown, "What is it?" "I'm here because I have something to ask you too." Wang Xian put the matter of the divine tomb aside. Even if someone really obtained the inheritance of the Master of God, it would take at least a few decades or even thousands of years for that inheritor to grow up. By then, he might have already broken through to the sixth change of the divine dragon realm. "A few days ago, my master sent me a message saying that he would judge me in the future. He even said that he would destroy all of us." Ji Lingfei's face was filled with worry as she continued, "Furthermore, they will definitely not give up on my senior brother so easily. I'm afraid that they will have other means to take revenge. Furthermore, I'm afraid that my master will personally descend here." "What is your master's realm? How strong is he in the boundless galaxy? If he were to descend here, how long would it take?" Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and asked consecutively. He was not afraid of the survivors of the Lingshao treasured palace. Even if they did not seek revenge, Wang Xian was prepared to get rid of them. "As far as I know, my master has already ignited 8 wisps of divine fire. He is also a giant in the boundless galaxy. If he were to descend here, he would need at least 1 to 2 years. I just don't know if my master would take this risk." Ji Lingfei replied. 8 wisps of divine fire? Wang Xian's eyes flickered. He wasn't very worried about the god of 8 wisps of divine fire. Even if he were to descend here 1 to 2 years later, he would be able to deal with it by then. At that time, it was not certain who would kill who. In fact, he might not even need the other party to descend. He might even bring Earth directly to the boundless galaxy. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the entire ground began to shake all of a sudden. It was as if a huge earthquake had occurred. "What's the situation?" Wang Xian was slightly stunned. He flew into the sky instantly. Xiao ran and the rest followed behind him in astonishment. They floated in the sky above Longmen Academy. "This is? What a pleasant surprise." When Wang Xian looked towards the south, a smile appeared on his face. He did not expect that a divine kingdom would appear again in the south. It was a brand new divine kingdom. In the past 10 years, many divine kingdoms and ancient lands had appeared. At that time, Wang Xian had missed out on many treasures. He did not expect that there were still divine kingdoms and ancient lands on Earth that were recovering. This was completely a gift for him. This kingdom of God belonged to the Dragon Palace. No other forces could get their hands on it. Chapter 1984. 1984 suppressed the world. What happened in the south? Did another ancient land appear? I didn't expect an ancient land to appear at this time. How many treasures does this earth have? Quick, everyone in the North Pole divine tomb has been expelled. I didn't expect a divine kingdom to appear immediately. The divine kingdom that just appeared must have many treasures in it. When the ancient land in the south shook and the divine kingdom appeared, everyone quickly flew towards the south. A new divine kingdom. All the gods on earth sensed the change in the south and revealed happy expressions. They immediately flew towards the divine kingdom in the south. Every divine kingdom that had just been unearthed must have the treasures of this god when he was alive. If this god had the power of 8 or even 9 wisps of divine fire when he was alive, the treasures inside might be a huge opportunity for their gods. Especially for the gods on earth who had just recovered, as long as they had enough resources, they could quickly improve. The appearance of this god's kingdom might be even more precious to them than the tombs at the North and South Poles. The group of gods immediately flew towards the ancient land in the south. "Let's go. We'll go too." At the same time, Wang Xian spoke to Xiao Ran and the rest in the sky above the Dragon Gate Academy. He then flew towards the divine kingdom in the south. After 2 consecutive teleportations, they soon arrived above the newly emerged ancient land. This divine kingdom is pretty big. Wang Xian looked at the divine kingdom in front of him, his eyes gleaming. This divine kingdom that had just been excavated had an area of 300 kilometers. The divine kingdom was different from the other ancient divine kingdoms. It was filled with a wild aura. In the middle of the divine kingdom was a 1,000-meter-wide golden lion statue. This seems to be the divine kingdom of the Golden Lion King. Huar and Kair looked at the kingdom of the Golden Lion King below and guessed doubtfully. The Golden Lion King. Wang Xian looked at the two little girls. The Golden Lion King is a demonic beast god. It has already ignited 8 wisps of divine fire. It is very powerful. Kair introduced it to Wang Xian. 8 wisps of divine fire? It seems like there are many good things inside. Wang Xian smiled and scanned the entire divine kingdom with his dragon eyes. There was an entrance to the divine kingdom that was completely open. With his current strength, he could only blast open an entrance from other places. The divine kingdom that had lost its god could only withstand the attacks of 2 to 3 wisps of gods. At this moment, countless figures were flying over from the surroundings. One by one, the gods had already arrived at the entrance. A newly unearthed kingdom of God would definitely drive the entire world crazy. Moreover, the kingdom of God that was unearthed was different from the tomb of the eternal God. It was not that difficult to enter. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In less than a minute, nearly 10 gods had appeared in the surroundings. In addition, there were hundreds of thousands of people who had gathered in the surroundings. Their eyes were burning as they stared at the kingdom of God in front of them. Let's go to the entrance. Wang Xian moved and arrived at the center of the entrance of the kingdom of God. Ha! When Wang Xian was floating in the middle of the entrance, everyone was slightly shocked. Even the god's pupils contracted slightly as they stared at Wang Xian with a solemn expression. It's the Dragon King. The Dragon King is here too. The Dragon King is here. Hundreds of thousands of people looked at Wang Xian and the rest at the center of the entrance. Their eyes were sparkling. No one is allowed to enter this divine kingdom without my permission. Wang Xian glanced at the 10 deities around him and said calmly. His voice was heard by everyone instantly. Come, let's go in. After Wang Xian finished speaking, he flew straight into the divine kingdom. He ignored everyone around him. Hiss. The hundreds of thousands of people around were slightly stunned when they heard the Dragon King's words. A helpless look appeared on their faces. We can only wait for the Dragon King and the rest to come out before we drink soup. Sigh, this is the world of the strong. In the past, the few major forces of the Lingxiao treasured palace monopolized these ancient lands. Now, it's the Dragon King's turn. Let's forget about it. Some people were talking helplessly. Now that the Dragon King had suppressed the world for a lifetime, the treasures that were unearthed would naturally be occupied by the Dragon King. They did not have the right to compete with him. After all, the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church had almost been destroyed. Compared to the natives on Earth, those disciples who had followed the gods to descend and the surrounding gods who had ignited their divine flames looked very embarrassed. Nowadays on Earth, other than the divine tombs, only these divine kingdoms want to obtain resources. Now that the divine kingdoms have been directly occupied by the Dragon King, all the gods looked very unhappy. Earth was very small to begin with, and there were many gods now. There were simply not enough resources to share. These divine kingdoms were the only way for them to increase their strength, now that they were occupied by the Dragon King. As for asking them to compete with the Dragon King, they really didn't dare. Now that the Dragon King had suppressed them for an entire lifetime, even if all of them joined forces, they would just follow in the footsteps of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At this time, a few other gods had arrived. Hearing the discussions around them, they frowned slightly. The 4 true dragon sons of heaven from the sacred true dragon gathering looked at each other and shook their heads with a frown. Everyone, as long as the Dragon King is here, any treasures on Earth have nothing to do with us. Now that the Earth has stopped in the void of the universe, entering the starry skies is undoubtedly a narrow escape. Right now, We can either risk a narrow escape or destroy the Dragon King. At this moment, a voice suddenly entered the ears of the surrounding gods. The eyes of the surrounding gods flickered. Hee, destroy the Dragon King? With what do we use to destroy the Dragon King? Let's wait until your Lingxiao treasured palace has the strength to fight against the Holy Church. A god coldly replied in a direction. His face was gloomy, and his body moved, instantly leaving this place. The surrounding gods left the place unwillingly. Soon all of the gods left. Hee, it seems that they are wavering. Two figures stood in the sky 100,000 meters high and said calmly, although they are wavering, they still have to depend on us in the end. Unless we can use our strength to fight against the Dragon King, they will not join us. Another figure said calmly, everything depends on that Qiyang. He has used up all the resources of our Lingxiao and the Saint Hall and placed everything on him. I hope that he will not disappoint us. The figure next to him said expectantly, in just a few days he has already ignited 5 wisps of divine fire. After a period of time, we will be able to take our revenge completely. The eyes of the two figures flashed with a cold light. They looked down at the divine kingdom with hatred in their eyes, and their figures slowly disappeared. I recommend a very good book, The Demon King of the City, written by Happier Heo. It's so wonderful that you can't miss it. Chapter 1985. 1985. In 1985, the kingdom of God was suppressed for a lifetime. Daddy was really domineering just now. Without my permission, no one is allowed to enter. It's so cool. Inside the kingdom of God, Hua Erkai held Wang Xian's arms on both sides and said to him with a smile, after suppressing the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church, there will naturally be some benefits. Wang Xian smiled. The Dragon Palace had suppressed the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church for this lifetime. During this period, the Dragon Palace would naturally take over the Divine Kingdom. As for the other gods, would they have any objections? So what? It was already good enough that Wang Xian didn't suppress them all. Let's go and see if there are any treasures inside. Wang Xian and the rest flew inside. All the ancient lands on Earth were huge resources to Ao Crab. He could totally devour all of them. However, Wang Xian did not do so for the time being. These ancient lands of the Divine Kingdom were a place of cultivation for the people on Earth. If Ao Crab were to devour these ancient lands of the Divine Kingdom, the cultivation speed of the people on Earth would be the same as that of the supernatural continent. Without the assistance of the Divine Kingdom, it was extremely difficult to produce a demigod powerhouse. It was different with these divine kingdoms. The Divine Kingdom was the best place for cultivation on the Transcendence continent. For the future of the people on Earth, Wang Xian thought about it and decided not to let Ao Crab devour all the divine kingdoms. Master, have you lit the divine fire? The 5 of them were searching for all kinds of treasures in the Divine Kingdom. When Xiao Ran and the rest saw Wang Xian making a move, they were shocked. Yes. Wang Xian nodded his head faintly. In a few days, the Dragon Palace will once again stand tall in the ocean. It can be considered as the complete return of the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace? Xiao Ran nodded his head silently. At that time, the underwater Dragon Palace had shocked all the powerhouses in the world. Now, it was about to be shown to the world again. Wow, Daddy, Golden Lion, there's actually a golden lion in there. At this moment, Huara's excited voice came from the front. Huh. Wang Xian flew over and looked at the golden lion statue in the center of the kingdom of God. As expected, there were 2 mighty golden lions there. The 2 golden lions were about 10 meters in size. Their golden fur looked extremely mighty. A golden lion that has already become a god? Could it be the fallen golden lion king? Wang Xian flew over and sized them up. Daddy, it's not that golden lion king. It should be his descendants that have used a special method to keep them alive. These 2 golden lions are so cool. They are simply too cool. Hua Er and Kair stared at the two golden lions with sparkling eyes. However, they did not dare to go over. After all, they were two golden lions that had lit up a wisp of divine fire. Their attacks were extremely ferocious. The two golden lions stared at Wang Xian and the rest with a curious and cold gaze. They grinned and roared. They are indeed powerful. If you like them, let them be your mounts. Wang Xian looked at the two golden lions and said with a smile. At the same time, the dragon's might emitted from his body directly covered the two golden lions. The two golden lions felt the dragon's might from Wang Xian and their eyes instantly revealed an extremely fearful expression. They laid on the ground and stared at Wang Xian with trembling eyes. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Come, I'll give you delicious food. Hua Er and Kair saw this scene and immediately took out some food. She walked to the two golden lions and handed it to them. Roar, roar, don't kill us. The two golden lions looked at Hua Er and Kair. Their bodies shrunk to only 1 meter in size. Follow us and we won't bully you. No one will dare to bully you in the future. How about it? Hua Er took the food and placed it beside them. Roar. The two golden lions looked at Wang Xian in fear. They bent down towards Hua Er and Kair to show their submission. Wow, you're so obedient. That's great. I'll call you gold and gold coins from now on. Hua Er said excitedly. The two golden lions lay there speechless. Let's go. We will take all the treasures in the divine kingdom. Wang Xian walked over and ordered the two golden lions. Now that he had ignited the divine fire, as one of the top divine dragons in the universe, even if the golden lions were not from the water tribe, they were still unable to resist under his pressure. This was also the reason why the two golden lions were willing to submit to the two little girls. Ho ho, yes. The two golden lions spoke to Wang Xian in awe and stood up slowly. You too, grow bigger and bring us along. Hua Er patted the head of the golden lion and spoke to them. Ho ho. The two golden lions nodded and returned to their original size of 10 meters. They didn't forget to eat the food that Hua Er had given them. Roar. The two little girls rode on the golden lion. They leaped into the air, causing the two little girls to cheer. A god-level mount was not something that an ordinary god could obtain. 2 hours later, Wang Xian and the rest searched the entire kingdom of God and kept all the valuable items. Let's go, gold coins. Hua Kair sat on the golden lions and said loudly while stroking their fur excitedly. Roar. The two lions roared and flew out of the divine kingdom while exuding a powerful aura. A majestic roar resounded across the entire sky. When they flew out, there were already millions of people gathered outside the divine kingdom. Although because of the Dragon King's order, no one dared to enter, they were still waiting. When the Dragon King came out, they could have some soup. When they saw two divine beasts emitting divine might fly out from inside, they were shocked. Oh my God, that's a golden lion, it's a divine beast that ignited the divine fire. Look at them, on top of them are the Dragon King's two daughters. Good heavens, the two divine beasts have become the Dragon King's daughters' mounts. Hiss, in just 2 short hours the Dragon King and the others have subdued 2 divine beasts. These are divine beasts. Shocked voices rang out one after another as everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. The Dragon King had actually obtained 2 divine beasts in the ancient land. This, who wouldn't be tempted? Everyone can enter the divine kingdom. There are still some resources inside. At this moment, the Dragon King's voice rang out. Everyone looked towards the exit and saw that the Dragon King and the others had also flown out. There are still some resources inside. Let's go in. Let's quickly enter. There are some things that the Dragon King doesn't like, but they are treasures to us. Quick. Everyone was shocked that the Dragon King had obtained 2 divine beast mounts and was frantically rushing into the ancient land. Chapter 1986. 1986. In 1986, the Dragon Palace descended. Extra, The ancient land has appeared once again. The Dragon King's words have intimidated all the gods. 2 hours later, the Dragon King subdued 2 divine beasts, the golden lions, and left. The Dragon King's 2 daughters rode on 2 divine beasts, the golden lions. It was simply too cool. The Dragon King has obtained 2 divine beasts that have ignited divine flames in the ancient land. The Dragon King's power has been strengthened once again. Less than a day after the ancient land was born, the entire world was once again in an uproar. In particular, the appearance of the 2 divine beasts, the golden lions, caused everyone's faces to reveal looks of envy and shock. These were 2 divine beasts at the level of gods. They had actually become the Dragon King's daughters' mounts. Using divine beasts as mounts, what kind of concept was this? In the entire earth, no one could be as mighty as the Dragon King. The news caused a huge shock. Especially when the gods saw this news, their expressions became even more unsightly. 2 divine beast mounts. If they could enter the divine kingdom, these 2 divine beasts might be tamed by them. These were 2 divine beast mounts. All the gods felt deep jealousy. Once, a divine beast-level pet cub could cause 2 powerful forces to fight over it. Now, they also wanted to fight over it. If the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church really have a way to fight the Dragon King, it's not impossible to join. Sometimes, some risks have to be taken. Some gods looked at the information on the internet with cold eyes. No one who could become a god was indecisive. They all had their own boldness. If they were really forced to a certain extent, they would be crazier than anyone else. Everything was for the sake of becoming stronger. The current gods were already forced to the edge of a cliff. If it was the soaring heavens treasured palace and the Holy Church suppressing the current life, they might choose to endure for a period of time. After all, the 2 major forces would bring Earth into the boundless star field. Now that Earth was docked in the void, there was no starry sky map and no hope of improvement. In the situation where there was no way forward, they could only fight to the death. 2 divine beasts. Back then, we collected more than a dozen divine kingdoms, but we didn't get any treasures like divine beasts. At the beginning, only some weak divine kingdoms were unearthed. If there were more divine kingdoms to come, they wouldn't be any worse than the Golden Lion's divine kingdom. Damn Dragon King, if it weren't for them, all the treasures would be ours. When we go back, we will definitely be able to ignite 1 or 2 wisps of divine fire. At this moment, in the Sacred Hall, the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the other gods of the Sacred Hall revealed furious expressions when they heard the news. All of this originally belonged to them. Now they could only hide here. Furious and unwilling. Let's wait a little longer. 10 days at most, 10 days at most. Yuan Kuei took a deep breath at the side. A terrifying killing intent shot out from his eyes. Dragon King. In the villa in Jiang City, Ao Jian and Ao Qitian returned not long after Wang Xian and the rest had returned. How is it? Have you found a suitable place? Wang Xian immediately asked them. Dragon King, we have found 3 places that are more suitable for the Dragon Palace. Ao Jian nodded. Currently, the sea-pacifying needles in our Dragon Palace are up to 10,000 meters tall. There are only a dozen or so places in the ocean that are more than 10,000 meters deep. We will choose 3 good locations from these dozen or so places. We will wait for your final decision, Dragon King. All right, let's go and take a look. Wang Xian nodded his head. With a shift of his body, he teleported towards the depths of the ocean. The Earth had undergone a change. The entire Earth had expanded by 4 to 5 times. The sea area that was originally thousands of meters deep and thousands of meters deep had also increased by a few times. The deepest part of the ocean had already reached about 20,000 meters. It could totally house the underwater Dragon Palace. This place is not bad. However, the area is not big enough. We need to modify it at the bottom of the ocean. Wang Xian chose one of the 3 locations. It was located in the middle of the ocean and there was a rather big island beside it. Call Prime Minister Gui over. Ask him to modify the surroundings. After that, we will transfer the Dragon Palace over immediately. Wang Xian instructed them once again. It's the Dragon King. The two of them nodded and took action immediately. Daddy, where is the Dragon Palace now? Is it fun? When Wang Xian returned, the two little girls couldn't help but ask curiously. Xiao Ran, Ji Lingfei, and the rest were also filled with curiosity. You will know when the time comes. Wang Xian smiled mysteriously and didn't explain too much to them. This made the two little girls' faces filled with displeasure. They snorted coldly as they plucked the fur of the gold coins and gold pieces. This made the two golden lions want to cry but have no tears. 2 weeks passed very quickly. When Wang Xian received the news from the members of the Dragon Palace, a smile appeared on his face. The matter regarding the ocean had been settled. Next, it was time to transfer the Dragon Palace over. Xiao Ran announced that the Ocean Dragon Palace has returned. Also, announced that all the gods can become external disciples of the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he gave an order to Xiao Ran. Huh? Xiao Ran was slightly stunned. He looked at his master in astonishment. Yes, master. He didn't ask further and nodded immediately. The Dragon Palace will be transferred to Earth. Next, we will destroy the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church. We will find the starry sky map and make Earth move toward the boundless galaxy once again. Wang Xian's eyes were sparkling. Next, he had to make plans for the future. Apart from destroying the Holy Church and the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, he was also planning to recruit the gods. Recruiting them was to prepare for Earth to enter the boundless galaxy. There was no harm in having more gods under his command. However, Wang Xian was not planning to recruit the gods into the Dragon Palace. In the future, he might arrange for these gods to be placed at the Long Men Academy. To resist foreign aggression, one must first settle down. Before Earth entered the boundless galaxy, Wang Xian had to ensure that there were no problems within Earth. You two girls, don't you want to know what the Dragon Palace looks like? Let's go, I'll bring you to take a look. The corners of Wang Xian's mouth curled up slightly as he said to Hua Kai. All right. Let's ride Gold Coin and the rest. The two girls' eyes lit up as they said excitedly. Let's go. Wang Xian nodded and flew directly toward the center of the ocean. What's that? When they arrived at the center of the ocean, 2,000 disciples of the Dragon Defense Division were standing on the surface of the ocean. They formed a circle within a radius of 1,000 kilometers. They were holding tridents in their hands, and their bodies were emitting a blue glow. They exuded a powerful dignity. Dragon King, Prime Minister Ao Yeka and a group of godly state experts of the Dragon Palace were standing in front of them. When they saw Wang Xian, they bowed respectfully. Chapter 1987. 1987. The Dragon Palace descended in 1987. Are you all ready? Wang Xian looked at the members of the Dragon Palace and said faintly to them, Dragon King, everything is ready. Prime Minister Gui bowed and said, All right, since that's the case, let the Dragon Palace descend. As Wang Xian spoke, he moved and immediately arrived at the center of the Dragon Defense Division. He extended his arms slightly toward the sky. Behind him, Hua Kai looked at this scene with a face full of curiosity. Buzz. Rumble. At this moment, a gigantic object that blotted out the sun appeared out of thin air above Wang Xian. The vast and majestic Dragon Palace slowly emerged. 9-colored light enveloped it. When it was revealed in this space, the entire world shook. It covered an area of more than 1,000 kilometers and was no smaller than the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. It looked even more majestic than the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. The 10,000-meter-long ocean-pacifying divine needle stood in the center of the Dragon Palace. The divine dragon sat on it, and the words, ocean-pacifying divine needle, flickered with golden light. Even if it was a few thousand kilometers, it could still be seen clearly. Wow! Hua and Kai were astonished. They raised their heads and looked at the majestic Dragon Palace. Greetings, Dragon King. At this moment, the members of the Dragon Palace immediately knelt down on one knee and shouted loudly. Their voices were earth-shattering. Whoosh! Wang Xian waved his arm gently and arrived directly above the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace shall be suppressed for an entire lifetime. Wang Xian looked down at the Dragon Palace beneath him. He looked down at everything around him and shouted in a deep voice. A voice spread across the entire earth. The Dragon Palace shall be suppressed for an entire lifetime. This is the voice of the Dragon King. It's the voice of the Dragon King. When everyone heard these words, their faces were slightly shocked. They quickly looked towards the ocean. What is that? What is that? Oh my God, is that the Dragon Palace? The Dragon King's Dragon Palace? More than 10 years ago, the Dragon King's Dragon Palace was located at the bottom of the ocean and shocked the world. Now, the Dragon Palace is even more shocking. When everyone saw the enormous Dragon Palace near the ocean, they were shocked. At this moment, the gods also looked toward the ocean. When they saw the majestic Dragon Palace, their pupils constricted again. Look on the internet. The Dragon King's disciple, Dean Xiao, has posted a message. He said that the Dragon King is recruiting all the gods. The gods can become external disciples of the Dragon Palace. This is a big deal. The Dragon King is openly recruiting underlings, and only godly state underlings. The Dragon King is too domineering. He made all the gods become external disciples of the Dragon Palace. When everyone was shocked by the Dragon King's voice, someone on the internet quickly found the message that the dean of the Dragon Gate Academy, Xiao Ran, had just posted. When they saw the content of the message, they were all shocked. The Dragon King actually announced that the gods could join the Dragon Palace and become external disciples of the Dragon Palace. Was too domineering. He made the gods external members of the Dragon Palace. Perhaps on Earth, only the Dragon King had the strength to say this. The Dragon King and the Dragon Palace indeed had the qualifications. Becoming an external disciple of the Dragon Palace, this Dragon King is somewhat insincere. The gods quickly received this news, and their expressions became slightly unsightly. After all, they were also gods who had ignited the divine fire. If we don't join the Dragon Palace, will the Dragon King destroy us? Some gods' eyes flickered, and they were extremely gloomy. There were also some gods who were considering whether or not they should ask the Dragon King for some information. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, something unexpected happened again. In the middle of the current continent, the earthquake-like situation happened again. A huge divine kingdom was slowly unearthed. The ancient land, which covered an area of 200 to 300 kilometers, once again shook the entire world. On the ocean, Wang Xian was floating above the Dragon Palace. When he sensed the vibration coming from the center of the continent, he was slightly stunned. Immediately, a smile appeared on his face. Is this a congratulation for the arrival of the Dragon Palace? He smiled faintly and looked at the leaders of the Dragon Palace. A new divine kingdom has appeared at the center of the continent. Bring all the valuable items here. Wang Xian said to the leaders of the Dragon Palace. Kiki, Dragon King, leave it to us. I'll go. Mo Sha and Ba Qi looked in the direction of the continent. Their eyes were sparkling. Qitian, Xingmu, bring Ba Qi, Mo Sha, and the others with you. Prime Minister Gui looked at Ao Qitian and Ao Xingmu and ordered. Yes, Prime Minister Gui. Ao Qitian, Ao Xingmu, and the others nodded. Together with Ba Qi, Mo Sha, and the other two members of the Mad Dragon Seed, they immediately flew toward the direction of the continent. There were 6 gods in total. Apart from Ba Qi, Mo Sha, and the others, who could only fight against 2 wisps of divine fire, Ao Qitian and the others could fight against 4 wisps of divine fire. This strength was enough to suppress everything. Perhaps, only Yuan Kuei from the Lingxiao Treasured Palace was slightly stronger than them. However, the Lingxiao Treasured Palace did not dare to come and seek death. Wang Xian's arm slowly swung downwards. the gigantic dragon palace fell towards the bottom of the sea. "Daddy, bring us to the dragon palace to take a look." Hua Kair's excited voice rang out. Wang Xian nodded his head. At the same time, when another divine kingdom was unearthed, the attention of the entire world shifted from the dragon palace to the ancient land. Countless people surged towards the ancient land. In the previous ancient land, even if the Dragon King was the first to enter and take away the most precious treasures, the things that were left behind still drove them crazy. Now they had to rush over quickly. Even if they could get some soup, it would still be good. The gods were also very unwilling. They quickly flew towards the divine kingdom. The two gods closest to the entrance saw it and did not hesitate at all. They directly flew inside. If the Dragon King came again, they might not be able to enter. Peng. However, just as the two gods were about to enter the divine kingdom, an enormous ocean-pacifying needle landed in front of them, causing their expressions to instantly change. "Kiki, our dragon palace has suppressed this world for a lifetime, so all the treasures naturally belong to us. You are not allowed to enter. Otherwise, die." Ba Qi's gaze swept past the two gods at the entrance, then arrogantly swept past the surrounding gods. The corners of his lips curled up as he said coldly. When the two gods saw the ocean-pacifying divine needle in front of them, they looked at the Dragon King's subordinates in the sky, and their expressions were incomparably ugly as they retreated. "The experts of the Dragon Palace have arrived. Let's prepare to drink soup." Just as the Dragon King said, the Dragon Palace will suppress this world for an entire lifetime. All the treasures will belong to them. When the surrounding people saw this scene, they took a deep breath and slowly spoke. No one had any objection to the Dragon Palace taking over this ancient land again. Good, this ancient land appeared at the right time. I didn't expect that even God would help us. However, at this moment, a few figures in a place that was hundreds of thousands of meters away from this ancient land were covered in flames, and their faces were filled with excitement and malevolence. Chapter 1988. 1988, suppressing the members of the Dragon Palace. Only 6 members of the Dragon Palace have arrived. This is the time for us to act. As long as we can easily suppress them, the other gods will naturally know what to do. After the Dragon King occupied the ancient lands of the Divine Kingdom twice in a row, the other gods have long been dissatisfied. Just now, the Dragon Palace actually announced that the gods can join the Dragon Palace. However, the Dragon King is too arrogant. He actually wants the gods to become external disciples of the Dragon Palace. The Dragon King is too arrogant. He completely doesn't put the gods in his eyes. You have to know that this group of gods may have once ignited 7, 8, or even 9 wisps of divine fire. They are so arrogant. How could they join a god faction with the highest 6 wisps of divine fire? Moreover, they are only external members. This is simply an insult to them. Among the 7 figures shrouded in flames, 6 of them looked down with hatred in their eyes. Didn't the Dragon King's Dragon Palace descend into the ocean? Why don't you just let me say it? I'll go and destroy the entire nest of the Dragon King. There's no need to go through so much trouble. The fiery red figure in the middle of the group smirked as he listened to the words of the people around him. A lazy look appeared on his face as he said indifferently, "We absolutely cannot take any risks before we have 100% confidence." Yuan Kuei looked at the young man beside him and said with a solemn expression, I have almost ignited 7 wisps of divine fire. With the weapons and battle experience in my hands, I can contend against 7 wisps of divine fire. Isn't this a 100% confidence?" The young man looked at Yuan Kuei and snorted lightly. "This time, we can't take the slightest risk. If we fail, we won't have a chance to turn things around. I'll only act when I have 100% confidence. The strength of the subordinates of the Dragon Palace is extraordinary. I'll only be at ease if I can rope in a group of true dragon sons of heaven and gods." Yuan Kuei's face was gloomy. With me around, you can rest assured. The young man smiled and looked down. When they come out, I'll make my move and show you my strength. Yuan Kuei and the others looked at him and nodded heavily. They looked down at the divine kingdom and waited quietly. I wonder what treasures the Dragon King's subordinates will get this time. This ancient land seems to be bigger than the one 10 days ago. There might be more treasures in it. Look at the internet. Someone took a picture of the Dragon King's Dragon Palace on the internet. My God, it's as big as the skyscraping treasured palace, and it looks even more majestic. There seem to be a lot of people in the Dragon Palace. Those are all the strength of the Dragon King. With the current power of the Dragon King, he can really be said to be invincible in the world. Even the recruitment of the gods this time is only to make them external members of the Dragon Palace. It's too domineering. Only the Dragon Palace can make the gods external members of the Dragon Palace. The more the ancient lands of the Divine Kingdom appear, the stronger the forces of the Dragon King and the Dragon Palace will be. It's hard to imagine what other forces can contend with the Dragon Palace. To contend with the Dragon King, one must obtain the inheritance of the eternal God in the divine tomb. As time passed, more and more people gathered around the ancient lands of the Divine Kingdom. Soon, there were several million people. Because of the orders of the 8 points, no one dared to enter. Even some gods hid in the surroundings. The strength of the Dragon King and the Dragon Palace was too strong. Especially just now, when the Dragon Palace descended into the ocean, its mighty power caused many people to be shocked. Now, even the gods were shrouded in the light of the Dragon King. They might even become the Dragon King's subordinates. In the sky, 7 figures listened to the discussions coming from below. Their eyes were cold as they waited. They would make the world tremble again. Time gradually passed, and more people gathered around the Divine Kingdom. Everyone was waiting for the members of the Dragon Palace to come out so that they could enter. 7 to 8 hours passed, but the people around did not lose their patience. They were still waiting. He, as expected of the Divine Kingdom of the 8 wisps of Divine Fire God. There are so many treasures inside. At this moment, the excited voices of the 8-limbed Mo Sha and the others came from the Divine Kingdom. 6 figures slowly appeared at the entrance of the Divine Kingdom. The rest can enter. If they are lucky, they might be able to obtain the method of becoming a god left behind by the god inside. Mo Sha and the others looked at the millions of people gathered around them. They raised their heads slightly and spoke to them. What? The method of becoming a god? The method of becoming a god. Could it be the inheritance of the god's cultivation? At this moment, when everyone heard Mo Sha's words, their faces revealed an excited expression. Their eyes were burning as they stared at the Divine Kingdom. All of you took away all the treasures and resources. You only left behind some cultivation methods. Your Dragon Palace really deserves to be destroyed. Just as everyone was going crazy, a voice suddenly sounded in the sky. When they heard this voice, the faces of the millions of people around them revealed shocked expressions. Some of the gods hidden in the surroundings were also slightly shocked and immediately looked towards the sky. Which reckless thing dares to challenge the dignity of our Dragon Palace? Hearing the words coming from the sky, Ba Qi and the others were stunned and stared at the sky with their blood-red eyes. The Dragon King of the Dragon Palace will suppress all of you for a lifetime? Today, I will suppress all of you. At this moment, a terrifying flame covered Ba Qi and Ao Xingmu from the sky. The flame was like lava. Boom! In an instant, a pillar of fire rose around the 8-headed demon, sealing them completely. Today, I will kill all of you, and then I will destroy your Dragon King. An extremely arrogant voice continued to come from the sky. Oh no! Not good, the opponent is very strong. At this moment, when Ao Xingmu and Ao Qitian sensed the flames around them and the flame lava in the sky, their expressions changed drastically, and a hint of shock appeared in their eyes. Break for me! Ao Qitian let out a furious roar. The blood-red chains wrapped around the sea-pacifying divine needle and directly attacked the sky. Bang! However, when the sea-pacifying divine needle fell into the flame lava, it was actually slowly melted. A flame followed the chains and attacked Ao Chiyin. The opponent is very strong. Run. Ao Xingmu saw this scene and immediately shouted with a shocked expression. Run! When the eight-headed spirit and Nemo Sha saw this scene, their hearts beat even faster. They let out a sharp sound and fled into the distance. However, in front of a god who could almost fight against 7 wisps of divine fire, they could not escape at all with their strength. The terrifying flames fell directly on their bodies. Chapter 1989. 1989 Dragon Extermination Palace Operation. You guys, in the future, I will pull your tendons and skin you. Just you wait, In front of the ancient land of the Divine Kingdom, screams of extreme pain could be heard from the area covered by the flames. Roar, roar. In the center of the flames, the screams of Ao Chiyin and the others could be heard. The millions of people around were completely dumbfounded when they saw this scene. What was going on? Suddenly, a voice sounded, followed by flames that directly covered the experts of the Dragon Palace. The few godly state experts who had followed the Dragon King to destroy the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Templar Hall screamed in pain. Someone actually attacked the Dragon King's subordinates and the members of the Dragon Palace. Who is it? Oh my god, he killed all the experts of the Dragon Palace with one move. Who is he? Is he a hidden expert of the Lingxiao treasured palace of the Sacred Hall? The millions of people around looked at the sky in shock. Hee, a bunch of dying things. How dare you shout? I can easily kill all of you. The arrogant voice sounded again, and 7 figures slowly appeared in everyone's sight. It's the people from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Sacred Hall. Who's that youth in the middle? How can he be so terrifying? Beside that youth is the strongest person from the Lingxiao treasured palace, the Yuan Kuei god. When the surrounding people saw the figures one by one, shock appeared on their faces. They widened their eyes and looked up in shock. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the Sacred Hall are going to take revenge, and it's going to be so fierce. Some people murmured as they watched this scene in shock. Boom! At this moment, the young man in the middle of the sky waved his arm, and the flames below suddenly disappeared. Bang, bang, bang. The flames disappeared, and the corpses fell directly to the ground. 6 corpses, not a single one less. Hiss! Seeing these corpses, everyone had shocked expressions on their faces. I remember that the devil monkey and the plant god were also relatively strong among the Dragon King's subordinates. Apart from that crab, the devil monkey god and the plant god were the strongest. Now, they were killed in an instant. Looking at the corpses on the ground, the bodies of millions of people trembled in shock. A young god had actually destroyed 6 powerful subordinates of the Dragon Palace with a wave of his hand. The Dragon King dared to destroy our Lingxiao treasured palace and kill the god of our Lingxiao treasured palace. Within 3 days, we will destroy his Dragon Palace and take his head. Yuan Kuei stared coldly at the 6 corpses on the ground with a bloodthirsty look on his face. It's just a small Dragon King. With me, I can easily kill him. The young man beside him said indifferently. As he spoke, he waved his arm, and the interspatial rings on Ao Chiyin's and the others' bodies were directly put into his bag. Let's go. The corners of Yuan Kuei's mouth curled up slightly, and he shouted softly. Whoosh! The group of people directly left, leaving behind a group of more than 1 million people with shocked faces. Whoosh! Seeing the powerhouses of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Sacred Hall leave, everyone took a deep breath. Do they really have the strength to fight against the Dragon King? Some people murmured and looked at the corpses on the ground in a daze. Soon, the noise and shaking sound reverberated through the entire sky and soon spread across the entire internet and the entire world. Looking at the corpses of the 6 godly state experts of the Dragon Palace on the internet, everyone widened their eyes in shock. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church still had their trump cards. Perhaps they could really fight against the Dragon King. This was the thought in everyone's mind. But at this moment, Wang Xian, who was strolling around the Dragon Palace with the two girls, had already sensed it the moment Ao Qitian, Ao Xingmu, and the rest died. His expression changed slightly. Ao he. Wang Xian shouted with a solemn face and immediately shouted, Dragon King. Ao he, who was dressed in black armor, flew over and bowed slightly. What happened? Huarkaya looked at Wang Xian, whose expression had changed. She asked curiously, Ao Qitian, Ao Xingmu, and the rest have fallen. Bring the soul-returning wood with you. Let's see if they have fallen in the divine kingdom or if it was someone else who did it. Wang Xian gave an order to Ao he. Ao Qitian and the rest are dead. A hint of blood flashed across Ao he's eyes. He nodded immediately. It's the Dragon King. I'll head over immediately. But after he finished speaking, his figure disappeared instantly. Ao Qitian, Uncle Ao Xingmu, and the rest have fallen. Huarkaya also looked at Wang Xian with an awe-inspiring expression. Yes. With their current strength, they can fight against a god with 4 wisps of divine fire. They shouldn't have fallen in the divine kingdom. Someone might have made a move. Wang Xian's eyes were flashing with a cold glint. To dare to kill the god of the Dragon Palace and be able to kill Ao Qitian and the other 3, it was definitely not simple. An ordinary god could not do it at all. At the very least, he could light up 5 wisps of divine fire and above. Who is courting death? Huarkaya revealed an angry expression when she heard Wang Xian's words. It's all right. We will know the news soon. Wang Xian's eyes were gleaming coldly. He wanted to see who was the one who made the move. We will deal with the top-notch experts under the Dragon King. The rest will be left to you. You have seen our strength. This is your last chance. However, at this moment, the black-robed figure appeared once again at the location of the True Dragon Union. He spoke to the 4 true dragon sons of heaven in front of him calmly. If you have the strength to destroy the Dragon King, why did you call for us? A young man looked at the black figure in front of him indifferently and knocked on the table lightly. This is the last chance for the soaring heavens treasured palace and the sacred hall. Even if we are confident, we still have to make sure that there are no mistakes. Joining us is the best choice for all of you. I don't think that all of you want to become external members of the Dragon Palace, hee. Black Robe's mocking voice sounded. The 4 from the sacred True Dragon gathering looked at each other with shining eyes. We will give you an answer tomorrow. The 4 true dragon sons of heaven said lightly. We welcome all of you to the sacred hall tomorrow. A smile appeared on the black-robed middle-aged man's face and disappeared instantly. This is an opportunity for us. Watching the black-robed middle-aged man leave, a young man looked at the other 3. The conditions given by the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall are not bad. They can't let us become external members of the Dragon Palace. This Dragon King is really laughable. A young man said coldly. It is indeed laughable. As the son of heaven of a true dragon who did not ignite the divine fire, he still wants us to bow down to him. He is extremely stupid. Another youth said coldly. The 4 of them conversed and had already made a decision in their hearts. Soon, in less than 5 hours, the gods received invitations from the Saint Hall and the Lingxiao treasured palace again. This time, when they saw that they could easily kill the experts under the Dragon King, the gods began to move. Chapter 1990. 1990. In 1990, the gods united. Dragon King, I have received news that it was the powerhouses from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church who destroyed Ao Qitian and the rest. Furthermore, they once declared that they would destroy our Dragon Palace within 3 days. Dragon King, do you want me to go to the Holy Church and destroy them immediately? As night fell, Ao Crab returned from the Dragon Palace in the depths of the ocean to report. Is it the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church? Was it Yuan Kuei who did it? Wang Xian sat on the dragon throne in front of the Dragon King Palace and looked down as he asked. Below, the subordinates of the Dragon Palace and the godly state experts were standing respectfully below. No, it was a young god. At that time, that young man killed Ao Qitian's leaders with just one move. That young god should be more powerful than Yuan Kuei. According to my guess, the other party must have ignited at least 6 wisps of divine fire or even more. Ao, he reported with a cold expression. Dragon King, as long as you give the order, we will head to the sacred hall immediately and destroy them completely. Prime Minister Gue immediately requested. Since they are courting death, we will fulfill their wish. Wang Xian's eyes were flashing with a cold glint. He had initially thought that after the arrival of the Dragon Palace, they would be completely exterminated. However, he did not expect that the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church would have such strong people. Since that was the case, he would not spare any of them. Wang Xian stood up slowly and swept his gaze across the subordinates of the Dragon Palace. After killing more than 20 strong people from the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church, and obtaining a bunch of fruits after the upgrade of the Dragon Palace had an additional 10 wild dragon species. Apart from that, Duan Jinming and the former clan leader of the Firehammer clan had also ignited the divine fire. After Ao Crab had become the devouring dragon, his entire body had undergone a huge change. At the same time, he had awakened the darkness attribute. After devouring more than a dozen divine kingdoms, he had already ignited 6 wisps of divine fire. With Ao Crab's current strength, he could definitely fight 2 levels above Wang Xian. His strength was still much stronger than Wang Xian. Regardless of whether it was the god with 6 wisps of divine fire or the god with 7 wisps of divine fire, they were all going to die this time. Master, Xiao Ran is here to pay his respects. At this moment, Xiao Ran's voice suddenly came from outside. Huh? Wang Xian looked at the sky and gestured to Prime Minister Gue. Prime Minister Jiwai nodded and immediately flew out to bring Xiao Ran, Ji Lingfei, and another young man over. Damn, is this the Dragon Palace? It's too domineering. The young man following Xiao Ran looked around in shock. When he entered the Dragon King Palace, his heart trembled slightly. He looked at the Dragon King on the huge dragon throne and the ancestral tree behind the dragon throne. He then looked at the people in the Dragon King Palace. When he felt the terrifying pressure from Ao Crab, Ao Yao, and Ao Jian, his face changed slightly. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead. At the same time, he suddenly felt extremely fortunate. Fortunately, I made a wise choice. The Dragon King's subordinates are far more than what they appear on the surface. FUCK, the last time when the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church were destroyed, the Dragon King seemed to have said that all the powerful figures of the Dragon Palace were here. Now it seems that at most half of them went last time. Dragon King, you're really too shameless. He kept complaining in his heart, but he forced a smile on his face. He kept nodding at Prime Minister Ao Crab Turtle and the others in a flattering manner. Master! Xiao Ran and Ji Lingfei looked around and were equally shocked. They bowed to Wang Xian. Xiao Ran, what's the matter? Wang Xian looked at them in puzzlement. Master, this is the god of the divine peak of the Huashan celestial race. He told me some news about the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church just now. I will inform Master immediately. Xiao Ran pointed at the young man beside him and said to Wang Xian. Hello, Dragon King. Shen Feng bowed to Wang Xian with a smile on his face. It's you. What's the matter? Wang Xian was naturally very familiar with the young man below and asked indifferently. This Dragon King. Shen Feng smiled and said, recently, some powerhouses from the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church have come to look for me. They want me to join them to deal with you, Dragon King of the Dragon Palace. Of course, I, Shen Feng, will not join them, so I rejected them decisively. Just now, they invited me again and said that many gods have joined them and are ready to destroy you, Dragon King of the Dragon Palace, in 3 days. At that time, I said that I would think about it. Now, I came to report to you immediately. Hehe, speaking of which I, Shenfeng, have never admired anyone in my life except you, Dragon King. You have a heroic figure. To be able to reach this stage on this lawless earth, I, the divine peak, am practically prostrating myself. All this while I, the divine peak, have wanted to follow you, Dragon King. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance. As he talked about the information one by one, he started to spout nonstop. What did he mean by, I look up to you like a torrential river? All right. Wang Xian interrupted this fellow's series of flattery and shook his head speechlessly. He. When Shenfeng heard his words, he smiled and shut his mouth. Wang Xian slowly closed his eyes and sensed the information of the true dragon's son of heaven one by one. Looks like they are all courting death. As Wang Xian sensed the information one by one, a cold expression appeared on his face. He didn't feel the messages of the true dragon's son of heaven all the time. 9 of the true dragon's son of heaven and 1 of the true dragon's son of heaven were killed by Wang Xian. There were still 8 of them left. Among them, when Wang Xian ignited the divine fire on the Transcendence continent, the demonic dragon's son of heaven and the earth's son of heaven charged into the vast starry sky. At that time, Wang Xian couldn't sense them because they were too far away. Therefore, he couldn't stop them from leaving. When he returned to Earth, the 2 of them were already in the vast starry sky. For this reason, Wang Xian hesitated for a moment and didn't call them back. It could be considered as leaving a seed behind. There were also 6 true dragon sons of heaven. They were all on Earth and had already accepted the invitation from the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church. It shouldn't be just the 6 true dragon sons of heaven who joined the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church. The other nearly 10 gods should have joined too. I originally wanted to subdue them. This is good too. I'll turn them all into resources. The corners of Wang Xian's mouth curled up slightly. His eyes revealed a sinister look. We'll wait here for them to attack us. It just so happens that everything that needs to be cleaned up has been cleaned up. Wang Xian sat down slowly. He still didn't know how many gods had joined the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church. If he were to go over, he would instead alert the enemy. Since that was the case, they would just treat it as them coming. Destroy the Dragon Palace within 3 days. He was waiting for them here. At the lower position, Shenfeng could not help but shiver when he saw the expression on Wang Xian's face. What bad idea does this Dragon King have? He is really bad. Chapter 1991. 1991 World 1991 focused on the first wave of attacks. What's going on? It's been more than 10 hours, and there's still no movement from the Dragon King? Could it be that he's afraid of that powerhouse? When the Dragon King led a group of powerhouses to attack the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall, he said that this was all of his strength. And today, all the powerhouses killed by the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall are top-notch powerhouses under the Dragon King. The Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall dare to take revenge on the Dragon King at this time. They dare to say that they want to kill the Dragon King within 3 days. They definitely have the confidence. Even the Dragon King might be afraid of them. 6 gods were killed in an instant, and all of them are the elites under the Dragon King. This time, the Dragon King might really be doomed. After all, they are the gods that descended back then. They still have many incredible trump cards. It had been more than 10 hours since Ao Qitian and the others were killed, and the entire internet was in an uproar. Even in the middle of the night, there were still hundreds of millions of people discussing the Dragon King and the Lingxiao Treasured Palace's Sacred Hall. The Dragon King did not make any sound for more than 10 hours after the powerful experts of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace's Sacred Hall were killed, which made many people think that the Dragon King might be afraid of the other party's strength. It made sense. The other party had killed 6 top-tier gods of the Dragon Palace in one move. The only one who could fight against that terrifying young god was probably the Dragon King's crab subordinate. However, it was still unknown whether that crab god was a match for that young god. The Dragon Palace was completely silent. There was no movement at all, which made many people guess all kinds of possibilities. Lord Luke Owen, Lord Yuan Kuei, Lord Scarlet Sun, a god has arrived. The night passed quickly. The sun rose and shone on the Holy Church. The entire Holy Church was emitting a bright divine light. Inside the Holy Church, a middle-aged man respectfully entered and reported, "Invite that person in." Luke Owen heard his subordinate's report, and the corners of his mouth slightly curled up as he said to him, "Yes, sir." The middle-aged man nodded. Very quickly, a middle-aged man slowly walked in. The middle-aged man carried a large golden saber on his back, and his entire person gave off a terrifying aura. "Welcome this brother to join our holy church and the soaring heavens treasured palace." Yuan Kuei and the others stood up with smiles on their faces as they spoke to the middle-aged man. "Remember your conditions." The middle-aged man looked at them and said indifferently, "Don't worry. We can swear a blood oath and make a contract. Even the lords of our boundless star field can guarantee it." Yuan Kuei nodded at the middle-aged man. "Please sit down, brother. We'll wait for the others." Luke Owen had a trace of a smile on his face as he gestured to the middle-aged man. "All right, Dragon King, damn it." The middle-aged man nodded and coldly said a few words before sitting down at the side. Soon, in less than half an hour, more gods arrived. In the next 5 hours, more and more gods arrived one after another. Even the son of heaven of the true dragon arrived. "Sorry we're late." Near noon, a figure walked in. Seeing the 4 of them enter, everyone in the sacred hall looked at them. "Ah, welcome the 4 true dragon sons of heaven from the sacred true dragon gathering. With you here, it'll be easy for us to kill the Dragon King this time." Yuan Kuei saw them walk over and a smile appeared in his eyes. Almost all the gods had come. As for the 1 or 2 that were missing, they didn't care if they came or not. "Hee, it's easy to kill the Dragon King. I can kill him in 10 moves. However, I still have to hand over the crab under the Dragon King to you." The 4 true dragon sons of heaven swept their eyes over everyone in the room. Apart from the 4 of them, there were 7 gods from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall, and 10 of them had joined in. Altogether, there were 21 gods. Compared to the previous powers of the sacred hall and the Lingxiao treasured palace, it was slightly less. However, when their gazes landed on the youth who was playing with the fire god Pearl in the middle, they felt confident. To be able to kill 6 top-tier gods of the Dragon King in 1 move, his strength was enough to resist or even kill the crab. Apart from him, there was also Yuan Kuei. Top-tier strength was enough. Not to mention, including the 4 true dragon sons of heaven, there were a total of 6 true dragon sons of heaven. First of all, I'd like to welcome all of you to join our Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall. Congratulations on making the right choice. I can say this. Even without you, with my strength, I can still destroy the Dragon King. Seeing everyone arrive, Qi Yang slowly stood up. At the same time, a terrifying pressure enveloped the entire room. This is... At this moment, when all the gods felt Qi Yang's pressure, their expressions changed. 6 wisps of divine fire. No, it's higher than 6 wisps of divine fire. The middle-aged man with the golden saber on his back narrowed his eyes as he stared at Qi Yang in shock. With your strength, you should be able to fight against a god with 7 wisps of divine fire, right? A true dragon son of heaven felt his strength and revealed a solemn expression. This strength was indeed terrifying. Some of the people present who did not lose their strength were only SO. The Dragon King's strongest subordinate is that crab creature. We have fought with it before. The Scarlet Sun God can fight against ordinary 6 wisps of divine fire. Yuan Kuei's lips curled up slightly when he saw everyone's shocked expression as he said indifferently, "I have the confidence to kill that ugly beast in 5 minutes at most." Scarlet Sun said with confidence, "Hee, we believe in the strength of the Scarlet Sun God. The Dragon King has a total of 28 godly state experts. Even if we add in the 2 golden lions that he has just subdued, There are only 30 of them. Yesterday we killed 6 of them. There are still 24 of them. In the 5 minutes that the Scarlet Sun God fought against the crab, we shouldn't have any problems fighting against the Dragon King and his group, right? Luke Owen's gaze swept across everyone around him as he said, I really didn't expect to gather 6 true Dragon Sons of Heaven today. After you killed the 6 subordinates of the Dragon King yesterday, I think that just the 6 of us will be able to suppress the rest of the Dragon King's subordinates. A true Dragon Son of Heaven indifferently swept his gaze over the 4 True Dragon Association members and the other True Dragon Son of Heaven, revealing a strong expression of confidence. This Dragon King is very annoying. He actually stupidly tried to recruit us as external members of the Dragon Palace. How pitiful, how laughable. A True Dragon Son of Heaven from the sacred True Dragon Gathering smiled. When do we act? Let's make a deal first. All the resources in the Dragon Palace belong to us. A god took out a long sword and lightly wiped it as he asked indifferently. Do it now. Don't worry, everyone. We only want the divine kingdom on this planet. The treasures in the Dragon Palace belong to you. The gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall stood up one by one, their eyes flashing with cold, killing intent. Then let's go kill that arrogant Dragon King. Chapter 1992. 1992 World 1992 focused the first wave of attacks. Boom boom boom. 21 figures in the sacred hall released terrifying auras as they floated in the air. With a youth dressed in a fiery red robe as the leader, Yuan Kuei and the other true Dragon Sons of Heaven followed by his side. They all looked towards the direction of the ocean. Let's go. This time we'll let the entire world know the power and majesty of our soaring sky-treasured palace and the sacred hall. Yuan Kuei's lips curled up slightly, and a cold expression appeared on his face. This time, I'm going to rip off the Dragon King's dragon tendon. I'm going to use his body to make a throne to take revenge. The faces of the several gods of the sacred hall and the Lingxiao treasured palace were filled with malevolence. Buzz. The 21 gods moved and immediately flew toward the ocean. In less than 5 minutes, the 21 gods arrived about 100,000 meters in front of the Dragon Palace. They stared ahead with murderous intent. What a huge dragon palace, it actually gives off such power. Yuan Kuei and the other gods looked through the ocean and stared at the huge and towering dragon palace at the bottom of the ocean. A hint of surprise appeared on their faces. This Dragon King must have obtained a powerful inheritance. Otherwise, it would be impossible for a small earthling to reach this stage in just a dozen years. Now, I even wonder if this Dragon King has obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord. A true Dragon Son of Heaven stared at the Dragon Palace below, his eyes shining. It's really possible. However, he has obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord and hasn't lit the divine fire yet. This is a bit of trash. It shouldn't be the inheritance of the eternal God Lord. If he obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord, he would be even more powerful. An eternal God Lord can shock an entire region. Several figures were talking. Alright, who cares what inheritance he obtained? I'll go and destroy them now. Qi Yang stared at the Dragon Palace and said confidently, Wait, everyone, don't worry. You don't need to attack in the first round. Yuan Kuei waved at Qi Yang and said indifferently, The first round? The gods looked at Yuan Kuei in surprise, and even Qi Yang looked at him in puzzlement. Everyone just wait and see. Since the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall have decided to kill the Dragon King today, we must be 100% sure that we will unleash all of our strength and trump cards. A hint of madness flashed in Yuan Kuei's eyes. As he spoke, he slowly took a few steps forward. Dragon King, destroy my Lingxiao treasured palace and kill the god of my Lingxiao treasured palace. Today will be the day of your death. Next year, today will be the day of your death. Yuan Kuei stared in the direction of the Dragon Palace and let out an angry roar. This angry roar resounded throughout the entire earth. His voice could be heard from every corner of the earth. At this moment, it was as if the entire world had fallen silent. Whoosh! Immediately after, the world went into an uproar. What's going on? Did the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall seek revenge on the Dragon King? So fast? They destroyed 6 godly state experts of the Dragon Palace yesterday, and now they're going to cover the entire Dragon Palace. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall are so confident. Hiss! The Dragon Palace just landed on the ocean yesterday, and now the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall are fighting. Everyone was shocked when they heard this voice. Especially in the cities close to the ocean, the experts immediately flew to the seaside. Some of them were bold enough to fly into the ocean. They wanted to watch this vast battle. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. However, at this moment, everyone in the seaside city suddenly heard a whistling sound. The sound was somewhat similar to a rocket launch. Oh my God, look at the sky, that's... Suddenly, an extremely shocking sound came from below. An old man looked at the sky with a face full of shock. Bomb weapons, it's a bomb weapon, and it's even a nuclear weapon that has been modified by a special energy. Hiss. Back when the gods descended, all the bomb weapons were taken away by them. It said that someone has added the modification of nuclear weapons, which can make the power of the bomb weapons even more terrifying. How many weapons are these? If these weapons were to be thrown on Earth, they could destroy the entire Earth. At the seaside, everyone raised their heads and looked at this scene in shocks. Terrifying weapons flew through the sky. There were at least 1,000 of them heading towards the Ocean Dragon Palace. Weapons washing the earth. Shocking! Shocking! Someone once said that as the most powerful weapon on Earth, its attack power is comparable to that of a god. Even if it's only comparable to the attack of a wisp of divine fire god, these thousands of weapons. Some people murmured. No one had expected that the Lingxiao treasured palace would have such a terrifying weapon. This is the most powerful weapon on Earth? At this moment, the gods around 100,000 meters away from the Dragon Palace were also surprised when they saw Tan Wu flying toward them. That's right. After being modified with demigod-level metal materials, it's even more powerful. Tan Wu whistled in the sky while Yuan Kuei watched the scene with a smile on his face. Although this planet is very weak, it has invented a weapon that's quite powerful. It can be used as the first wave of attack against the Dragon Palace. He continued to speak as he looked indifferently at the bullets that were about to land on the Dragon Palace. It's about to begin. Suddenly, his voice was filled with excitement as a lightning shield appeared in front of him to block the bullets. The first wave of attacks was the bullets. The hearts of the surrounding gods trembled as they stared intently at the bullets. More than 1,000 bullets were about to land on the Dragon Palace. Dragon King, the people from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church are here. I didn't expect them to have so many bullets. The power of the bullets is comparable to the attack of a wisp of divine fire god. The power of thousands of bullets attacking at the same time is not small either. At this moment, in the Dragon Palace, when all the gods from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church arrived, the scouts of the Dragon Palace had already discovered them. However, to the surprise of Wang Xian and Prime Minister Gui, the first round of attack from the other party was actually the Danwu. Thousands of Danwu were raining down on them. Without dodging, a divine kingdom could be directly destroyed. They really used all their strength. Wang Xian looked at the Danwu that was raining down on them from above. A cold expression appeared on his face. Dragon King, with the defense of the Dragon Palace, these bullets won't be able to touch us at all. Prime Minister Gui raised his head and looked at them indifferently. I know. However, since the upgrade of the Dragon Palace, I haven't tested the offensive power of these bullets. Let's test them out. A faint smile appeared on Wang Xian's face. A level 6 Dragon Palace could withstand attacks below the level of Eternal Lord. Similarly, a level 6 Dragon Palace also had offensive means. Although the attack could not be compared to the defense, Wang Xian wanted to take a look. Dragon Palace, attack! He shouted softly. At this moment, dragon roars sounded from within the Dragon Palace. Chapter 1993. 1993 Doomsday of the Gods. Dragon Palace, attack! Roar, roar, roar! With a thought from Wang Xian, the attack formation of the Dragon Palace was activated instantly. Earth-shattering dragon roars came from the Dragon Palace at the bottom of the sea and charged upwards. 9 dragon shadows formed by attributes charged out of the Dragon Palace instantly and out of the sea. Dan Wu is about to land on the Dragon Palace. There are thousands of them. There are thousands of them. What would happen if all of them exploded? At this moment, some of the experts who had rushed over were shocked when they saw the bullets flying toward the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace was going to be destroyed. Some thoughts rose in his mind. Yuan Kuei and the other gods were watching this scene from a distance of 100,000 meters away with smiles on their faces. However, when the majestic roars of dragons came from the bottom of the sea, the faces of the gods from the Lingxiao treasured palace, the sacred hall, and the others turned solemn. Voila! 9 enormous divine dragons rushed out of the sea and roared at the bullet weapons one after another. 9 divine dragons, 9 different colors. Each divine dragon exuded a terrifying majesty. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the Dan Wu in the sky exploded under the impact of the 9 divine dragons. Mushroom clouds surged upwards, rolling upwards. The entire world shook. However, at this moment, the bodies of the divine dragons emitted a radiance of various attributes. The radiance completely blocked the aftershocks of the explosion. One after another, the divine dragons suddenly opened their huge mouths and devoured the exploding clouds. This scene caused everyone's faces to be filled with shock. The divine dragons formed from the 9 attributes were at the center of the explosion. Not only were they not shattered, but they were also rolling in the mushroom clouds. The divine dragons opened their mouths and quickly devoured the harmful substances in the exploding clouds. At this moment, the experts who had taken the risk to come here to watch were completely dumbfounded. The 9 dragons wreaked havoc at the center of the explosion, covering thousands of kilometers of the explosion. Instead, it seemed to have become a playground for the 9 dragons. This is an array formation. The 9 dragons were formed by an array formation. I didn't expect that the Dragon King would have such an array formation. It's indeed not simple. It seems that the Dragon King is the legendary son of heaven of the first true dragon. Furthermore, the Dragon King obtained many more treasures than the other son of heaven of the other true dragons. At this moment, the gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace in the sky were shocked when they saw this scene. They stared at the 9 divine dragons formed by the array formation with solemn expressions. Things had gone beyond their expectations. This formation is very strong, but that's all it is. Qi Yang felt the power of the 9 divine dragons and a cold glint appeared in his eyes. He slowly flew forward. When the gods saw him flying forward, they immediately followed closely behind him. But so many people are seeking death. Following the Lingxiao treasured palace and the holy church won't end well. At this moment, at the bottom of the sea, Wang Xian led a group of disciples of the Dragon Palace and slowly surfaced from the water. Wang Xian, who was wearing a crown and sitting on the dragon throne, stared coldly at the 21 gods in front of him. Behind him, more than 10,000 disciples of the Dragon Palace stood at the back with weapons in their hands. Their eyes were filled with killing intent as they stared at them. Dragon King. When he saw the Dragon King and the rest taking the initiative to come out, Yuan Kuei's eyes were filled with killing intents. They looked at the majestic Dragon King who was sitting on the dragon throne and scanned the members of the Dragon Palace behind Wang Xian. I really want to know what inheritance your Dragon King has obtained. He actually has so many powerful subordinates. Qi Yang's gaze swept across the tens of thousands of members of the Dragon Palace. His face was also filled with astonishment. The strength of an ordinary high-level demigod was not something that an ordinary demigod could compare with. It seems like I can't let you live, Qi Yang said coldly. If the Dragon King was given a few more years, the strength of the Dragon Palace would be even stronger. He, you can't let me live. Wang Xian's gaze landed on Qi Yang, who was in the middle. A hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Dragon King, how dare you kill Ao Qiyan, Ao Xingmu and the rest? Let me kill him. Ao Crab looked at Qi Yang, his eyes full of killing intent. Bone spikes extended from his arms. You are that crab? TSK, I will kill you within 5 minutes today. Dragon Palace, prepare to die, ha! A carefree laughter came out of Qi Yang's mouth, and a terrifying flame rose. In an instant, the seawater below him evaporated instantly. The seawater below him was about 100 meters lower than the other locations. His imposing manner was completely locked onto Ao Crab. His face was filled with a smile. It was as if he didn't put Ao Crab in his eyes at all. He was very clear about Ao Crab's strength. It was also because he was clear that he had strong confidence. Ao Crab, kill him. Wang Xian ordered Ao Crab indifferently. It's the Dragon King. Ao Crab stared at Qi Yang, who was emitting flames all over his body. There was a hint of disdain in his eyes. Haha, 5 minutes. All of you only need to hold on for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, I will kill this fellow. Then, I will come and destroy the Dragon King and the rest. Qi Yang's body moved, and he flew directly hundreds of thousands of meters into the air. He waved his arm, and a terrifying spear attacked Ao Crab. Dragon King, give me 1 minute. Ao Crab stared at Qi Yang, who was extremely arrogant and did not put him in his eyes, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. His body flickered. The flaming spear instantly collapsed. Crash! Ao Crab's waist shook, and a huge wing appeared on his back. Stupid thing! He roared at Qi Yang coldly. Ha, you are the stupid one. Today, I will let all of you witness my full strength. Qi Yang roared with excitement. Boom, boom, boom. The entire sky was instantly covered by flames, completely forming a fire domain. In the fire domain, the fire giants stared at Ao Qi coldly as if they were alive. He, Dragon King, I wonder if you have any more subordinates who can fight with me. Yuan Kuei saw that Qi Yang was restraining the strongest subordinate of the Dragon King. He stared at Wang Xian coldly and said with a smile, "Don't be so arrogant." Ao Qi slowly took a few steps forward. Around him, the 9 members who had upgraded to the Berserk Dragon Seed followed behind him. After Ao Qi killed the gods of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall, he transformed into a Berserk Dragon with his divine spark. Unlike Ao Qitian's body, Ao Qi's blood-red armor covered his entire body. He had a blood-red hammer in one hand and a blood-red spear in the other. At his waist, a blood-red chain wrapped around him. Similar to Ao Qitian, there was an eye between his brows. The blood-red Goyu was in the middle of his pupils. 10 mad dragons locked their cold eyes on Yuan Kuei. Chapter 1994. 1994. In the 1994 Apocalypse of the Gods. Dragon King, your 10 subordinates have locked onto me. Alright. Today, let me experience the strength of your 10 subordinates. Yuan Kuei saw Ao Qi and the others exuding a powerful aura, and his face revealed an excited expression. Even if the sudden appearance of these 10 powerful creatures was beyond his expectations, he could clearly sense that the other party's strength was definitely inferior to his. This meant that the Dragon King only had that crab as a trump card. Seal. Ao Qi's entire body emitted an incomparably violent aura that belonged to the Berserk Dragon species. His body shook, and blood-red chains directly attacked Yuan Kuei. Come and fight. Today, I will take your heads one by one. Yuan Kuei's figure moved, and he directly flew into the sky, his body covered in dense lightning. TSKDC, Dragon King, as the first person to obtain a dragon soul, you are known as the head of the true dragon. Now, I want to experience it. I don't know if you have condensed a divine dragon body. Come, Dragon King, let me give you some pointers. A young man from the True Dragon Gathering glanced at Yuan Kuei, Qi Yang, and the others. His body moved and he stepped forward. At the same time, he raised his head and roared as his body underwent a huge change. Roar, roar. A golden dragon that was 3,000 to 4,000 meters in size appeared in front of everyone. Golden scales and a majestic dragon head stared at the Dragon King. The head of a true dragon? Then let the rest of us meet the so-called head of a true dragon today. Behind them, the members of the sacred True Dragon Gathering also moved. Roar, roar, roar. Roar, roar, roar. Heaven-shaking sounds sounded as 3 terrifying divine dragons floated in the sky. Jia Jia, the 6 of us are enough to kill the Dragon King and the others. Behind them, the other 2 Son of Heaven looked at each other and moved. Roar, roar, roar. Roar, roar. Another 2 dragon roars shook the sky as 6 divine dragons that were 2,000 to 3,000 meters long appeared in the sky above the ocean. Hiss, maybe we don't even need to do anything. 6 true dragon sons of heaven are so powerful and terrifying. Behind them, the last 13 gods looked at the terrifying divine dragons with shock on their faces. They felt that they didn't need to do anything in this battle. Lord Qiyang, Lord Yuan Kuei, and the 6 true dragon sons of heaven are enough to destroy the dragon palace. A god from the Lingxiao treasured palace looked excited when he saw this scene. He raised his head slightly and looked at this scene proudly. This is the true dragon son of heaven? The Dragon King is already strong enough. I didn't expect that the true dragon son of heaven isn't weak at all. The Dragon King and his group of top-tier godly state experts are completely restrained. How are they going to fight against the 6 true dragons son of heaven now? This is going to be troublesome. Some of the experts who were more than 100 kilometers away were observing the situation here through formations and weapons. When they saw this scene, they took a deep breath. They felt that after the Ling Xiao treasured palace and the Saint Hall recruited a group of true dragons son of heaven this time, their strength was even stronger than when they were at their peak. Dragon King, come and face your death. The group of true dragon sons of heaven hovered in the sky and turned the seas upside down. Their dragon eyes were filled with mockery as they stared at Wang Xian, who was sitting on the dragon throne. Among the 6 true dragon sons of heaven, 3 of them had already ignited 2 wisps of divine fire. Even if they had not learned the divine dragon transformation, they could still fight 2 levels higher. This was the strength of the divine dragon body. This was also one of the reasons why they dared to provoke and even mock the Dragon King. This was because, in their opinion, the Dragon King had not ignited the divine fire yet. Without a group of subordinates, they could easily kill him. The 6 divine dragons raised their heads together and let out a deafening dragon roar. The dragon roar was filled with dignity and dominance. Hee. Wang Xian looked at them with a faint smile on his face. He slowly stood up from the dragon chair and stared at the 6 divine dragons who were staring at him with disdain. Since you guys are looking for death, I shall grant your wish. As he spoke, his mind moved. We are looking for death, huh? When one of the true dragons son of heaven heard Wang Xian's words, a smile of proof appeared on his face. He opened his mouth and a wave of terrifying dragon breath was condensing. However, his actions came to an abrupt halt. The other 5 figures who were swaying their bodies in the sky suddenly froze. No, what's going on? What's going on? Get out of here. All of a sudden, one of the true dragons son of heaven's dragon body was swaying and rolling in the sky. He seemed to have encountered great fear as he roared in horror. Who are you? Get out of my body and get lost. The other two true dragons, son of heaven, who had ignited two wisps of divine fire, also had a look of horror in their eyes as they roared ferociously. As for the other three true dragons, son of heaven, their bodies were floating in the sky without making any sound. They're just a bunch of chess pieces. Wang Xian looked at the six true dragons, son of heaven, and said indifferently. At this moment, the six divine dragons suddenly raised their heads and let out a roar toward the sky. Buzz. At this moment, the dragon bodies of the six divine dragons trembled violently. They turned around and looked coldly at the dozen or so gods behind them. What's the situation? When the dozen or so gods saw the six true dragon sons of heaven suddenly roaring in fear, and when they saw them suddenly turning around and staring at them with murderous intent, the gods behind them were completely dumbfounded. What was going on? With the current strength of Lord Scarlet Sun, Lord Yuan Kuei, and the six true dragon sons of heaven, they might not even need to make a move in this battle. What was going on now? Why were the six true dragon sons of heaven staring at them like that? Kill them. Right at this moment, they heard the Dragon King's voice. Kill. Immediately after, more than a dozen experts with divine might flew out from behind the Dragon King and directly attacked them. True Dragon Son of Heaven, what are you doing? Kill the Dragon King and the others. A god from the sacred hall saw the Dragon King's subordinates attacking and immediately shouted at the six true dragons, Son of Heaven. Roar. However, at this moment, the six divine dragons roared and attacked them. At this moment, the gods were completely stunned. What exactly happened? Bang! You, a god who has only ignited 6 wisps of divine fire, dare to say that you can kill me within 5 minutes. Suddenly, the sound of a heavy collision could be heard from above. An AO crab with savage wings on its back and an arm filled with sharp thorns stabbed into the Scarlet Sun God's chest and dove down. No, how is this possible? The Scarlet Sun God felt the pain on his body and stared at the AO crab with a blank expression. The 10 or so gods behind him also widened their eyes when they saw this scene. Didn't they say that they would kill the crab in 5 minutes? Why was it only 10 or so seconds? Chapter 1995. 1995, the end of all gods. What is going on? All the gods looked at this scene in astonishment. The 6 true dragon sons of heaven who suddenly attacked them. The Scarlet Sun God whose body was suddenly pierced by the sharp spikes of the Dragon King's subordinates. Especially the Scarlet Sun God. Didn't he just say that he would kill the Dragon King's crab subordinate in 5 minutes? It had only been 10 seconds, but he had already been attacked and injured. Run. At this moment, the dozen or so gods didn't hesitate at all. They turned around and fled into the distance. The Scarlet Sun God was the strongest among them. They had relied on him for everything in today's battle. Now, he had been defeated so easily. How is this possible? In the air above the Dragon Palace, Yuan Kuei faced Ao Qi and the rest of the Berserk Dragon species alone. When he saw that Scarlet Sun had been injured, his face was filled with shock. How is this possible? How can you be my opponent? Get lost. In a daze, his body trembled, and terrifying flames shot out from his body toward Ao Crab. Whoosh! The bone wings on Ao Crab's back extended forward, directly blocking the flames that were covering him. Through the bone wings, Ao Crab's blood-red eyes were filled with disdain as he stared at the Scarlet Sun God. With your strength, you still dare to say that you can destroy me in 5 minutes? Ao Crab said to him with a disdainful look, and the sharp thorn in his hand moved slightly. Ah! A sharp pain entered his mind. Looking at Ao Crab who easily blocked his attack, a trace of fear finally appeared on his face. Sheng Tian Furnace, Divine Kingdom Protection. He gritted his teeth and roared fiercely. Behind him, a huge divine kingdom of the furnace immediately appeared. The divine kingdom did not expand, but slowly wrapped around his body. A powerful force rushed toward Ao Crab. He wanted to get rid of Ao Crab's attack. You still want to resist? Ao Crab stared at him, his mouth split open in a sinister smile. At the same time, he pulled out the bone spike that had pierced into the Scarlet Sun God's body, his arms slightly curled up. Escape! At this moment, seeing the bone spike being pulled away from his chest, the Scarlet Sun God hurriedly dodged to the side in fear. However, at this moment, he saw Ao Crab's arm, which was filled with sharp spikes, slightly curled up in front of him. A terrifying and ferocious dragon roar suddenly came from his arm. Under his shocked gaze, the arm expanded at a terrifying speed. The position of the finger turned into an incomparably ferocious monster. The head of the monster was somewhat like that of a divine dragon, but it was much more ferocious and terrifying than a divine dragon. It emitted an evil aura. Devouring dragon. At this moment, Ao Crab's emotionless voice rang out, and the terrifying and ferocious dragon head directly attacked the Scarlet Sun God. Heaven-fusing furnace. When the Scarlet Sun God saw this terrifying scene, his expression changed drastically, and he immediately roared out. The divine kingdom behind him was like a world furnace, directly melting towards the devouring dragon head. Roar! However, just as they were about to clash, the terrifying dragon head bit down on the divine kingdom's furnace. Ka-ka-ka! The sounds of shattering rang out, and the Scarlet Sun God's expression changed, as he spat out a large mouthful of blood. His face was filled with shock. No, no, how can you be so strong? How can you be so strong? Not long ago, you were only equivalent to 6 wisps of divine fire. How can that be? The threat of death shrouded the god of Scarlet Young. His face was filled with despair. Looking at his divine kingdom being devoured piece by piece, his entire body was trembling. Roar! The dragon head of the devouring dragon spewed out a terrifying dark light and landed directly on his body. The terrifying power penetrated through his divine kingdom and landed directly on his body. Scarlet Young widened his eyes. His face was filled with unwillingness as he landed heavily on the ground below. Wang Xian raised his head slightly and looked at the god of Qiyang who was landing on his side. His eyes revealed a hint of coldness. He waved his arm and the dying Qiyang landed directly on Wang Xian's side. Bang! When he landed in front of Wang Xian, an invisible barrier caused his body to crash heavily onto the ground. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Both of his hands were trembling as he held onto the spot on his chest. If you want to destroy me, you might not be strong enough. At this moment, Wang Xian's voice rang in his ears. Qi Yang turned his head with difficulty. He looked at Wang Xian in a daze. Please don't kill me. I'm willing to submit to you. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he spoke with great difficulty. You're not qualified. Wang Xian looked at him and flicked his finger. A destructive force entered his body instantly and wreaked havoc on the life force in his body. Buzz! A mournful sound of heaven and earth rang out. A cloud of fire hung in the sky. A god of fire had fallen. Lord Qiang is dead. Lord Qiang is dead. At the back, a group of gods who were about to escape had sensed the death of Qiang. They shouted in fear. In less than a minute, the invincible Scarlet Sun God was killed. This was a god that was comparable to 7 wisps of divine fire. Now, he was easily killed by the Dragon King's subordinates. Run, run, run now. Run into the starry sky. At this moment, more than 10 gods' faces were filled with panic. It was too terrifying. They didn't dare to stay on Earth any longer, and all of them tried their best to escape into the starry sky. Even if they didn't have the starry sky map, even if they had a slim chance of survival, it was still safer than staying on Earth. It's too late to escape. The godly state experts of the Dragon Palace attacked. The 6 divine dragons swayed their huge bodies and blocked in front of them. No, no, you bunch of true dragon sons of heaven, you actually betrayed us. What's going on? Did the 6 true dragon sons of heaven betray us? Or? Panic and despair appeared on the gods' faces. At first, they thought that the Dragon King would be killed without their help. Now, it was the Dragon King who hadn't made a move. How can this be? Is the heaven going to destroy the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall? Yuan Kuei also noticed Qi Yang's death. His face was gloomy and his breathing was hurried. Why were the subordinates of the Dragon King so invincible? Even in the endless star field, such strength was a very powerful force. Only Master and the others can kill the Dragon King. Only Master and the others can suppress the Dragon King. Yuan Kuei's mind kept running wild. Suddenly, he felt a gaze that made his scalp tingle as he looked in his direction. His figure immediately retreated, and when he raised his head, he met Ao Crab's gaze. At this moment, he saw death. Chapter 1996. 1996. In 1996, the skyscraping Holy Church was no more. Yuan Kuei looked at Ao Xie's cold and disdainful eyes and couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. How could he defend against an expert who could kill the Scarlet Sun God in less than a minute? He couldn't defend at all. Roar. At this moment, Ao Xie waved his arm, and the arm that had transformed into a ferocious devouring dragon attacked Yuan Kuei directly. No, I'm not resigned. I'm actually going to die on a small planet. At this moment, feeling the fatal threat of death, he roared out in despair and unwillingness. Yuan Kuei wanted to escape, but Ao Qi and the other 10 people were blocking him. Not to mention, even without them blocking him, Ao Crab's attack was still not something he could dodge. The difference was too great. Ah! The devouring dragon's head bit his body, causing him to let out a desperate scream. With the death of the Scarlet Sun God and Yuan Kuei's death, the dozen or so gods surrounded by the divine dragons and members of the Dragon Palace completely collapsed at this moment. Even a god that was almost comparable to 7 wisps of divine fire was easily killed by the Dragon King and the others, not to mention their group of 1, 2, or at most 3 wisps of divine fire gods. Dragon King, I submit. I submit. Please don't kill me. I am willing to become an external member of the Dragon Palace. I am willing to submit. The gods did not want to die. It was not easy for them to be resurrected. After experiencing death, they were filled with fear towards death. But unfortunately, no. Soon, desperate voices rang out. Above the Dragon Palace, the wails of heaven and earth rang out continuously. When the 15th sorrowful cry of heaven and earth fell, the entire world regained a trace of tranquility. Around them, the death of the water elemental god rained down. The death of the wind elemental god caused the winds to howl in all directions. The entire space appeared unusually chaotic. Aohe, bring some people to the Holy Church and kill all the survivors of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. Wang Xian ordered Aohe directly. It's the Dragon King. Aohe nodded and looked at Ao Qi's 10 members. Let's go. Ao Qi nodded and followed behind Aohe as they flew towards the Holy Church. This is an easy massacre. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church were killed so easily. Who would have thought that it would end so quickly? The nuclear weapons were easily blocked by the Dragon Palace, and the one who killed the 6 top gods of the Dragon Palace was killed so easily. When everyone thought that the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Sacred Hall could compete with the Dragon Palace, who would have thought that it would end up like this? This time, the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Sacred Hall have completely disappeared from Earth. All the forces that had descended have fallen. Hundreds of kilometers away, all the figures saw this scene, and their faces were filled with shock and respect. After this battle, the Dragon Palace and the Dragon King would completely establish their throne. A high throne. The cries of the heavens and the earth should be the beautiful rhythm of the Dragon King's death. Lord, the Scarlet Yang Fire God Yuan Kuei and the true Dragon Sons of Heaven destroyed the Dragon Palace within our expectations. Luke Owen stood in the sky above the sacred palace and looked in the direction of the Ocean Dragon Palace with a smile on his face. Every mournful cry made his smile even wider. After destroying the Dragon Palace, no one on Earth will be able to fight against us. Luke Owen said with a smile. Unfortunately, we can't do as you wish. At this moment, a cold voice entered their ears. At this moment, Luke Owen and a few other gods who had been resurrected by dripping blood had a huge change in expression. They hurriedly looked up into the sky. How did you get here? How is this possible? You. When they saw Aochi and the others, their pupils constricted slightly, and their foreheads were instantly filled with cold sweat. They stuttered, and their expressions changed drastically. They're all dead. You guys should go and accompany them. From now on, the Temple of Heaven will completely disappear. Aochi said indifferently. He raised the thunder hammer in his hand, and the blood-red lightning was brewing on it. No, how is this possible? With Qi Yang and the others' strength. Luke Owen's face was full of shock. He hurriedly hid into the temple. Crackle! Ah! The two figures beside him could not dodge in time. They were struck by lightning in an instant, and their bodies fell to the ground. Do you think that this sanctuary can still protect you? Ao Crab looked at the sanctuary that was covered by a powerful array formation, and a cold expression appeared on his face. He moved slightly, and an earthy black tail appeared behind him. The tail changed at a terrifying speed. The entire tail was covered in black scales, and there was a terrifying spike on the tail that looked incomparably heavy. Whoosh! Ao Crab waved his tail, and the sharp spike pierced directly towards the array formation. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, and the terrifying tail pierced directly into the array formation. No, how is this possible? This is an array formation that can withstand attacks from 8 divine flames and below. You? How did you suddenly become so strong? When Luke Owen saw that the array formation had been broken, a look of despair appeared on his face. At this moment, he also understood why Scarlet Sun Yuankue and the others had been killed so quickly. Directly breaking the array formation? This was probably something that only the higher-ups of the Soaring Heavens Palace could do, right? Die! Ao Crab stared coldly at Luke Owen inside as his terrifying tail stirred. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of collapse could be heard. The sound of screams could be heard from inside. Take all the useful materials away, and then clean this place up. Aochi said to the people beside him. He held a long spear in his hand and threw it down directly. Rumble! The entire holy church occupied an area of 700 to 800 kilometers. Sacred mountains and palaces. But soon, the enormous holy church began to collapse bit by bit. The Invincible Holy Church, which had stood tall in the West for more than 10 years, began to collapse. It was just like the Soaring Heavens Palace in the eastern sky. Aochi and the others put all the resources in the holy church into their interspatial rings. Half an hour later, the enormous holy church was reduced to ruins. In the surrounding area, everyone was shocked when they saw the huge object collapse. From now on, the Temple of Heaven and the Holy Church will be completely wiped out. There will be no Temple of Heaven and the Holy Church on Earth. When the Holy Church collapsed completely, Ao Crab and the others floated in the air. A majestic voice came out of Ao Crab's mouth and resounded throughout the world. Everyone heard it clearly. At this moment, everyone in the world slightly opened their mouths. Especially those disciples who had followed the gods to descend. Their hearts were shaken and their faces were extremely ugly. Chapter 1997. 1997 continued to wander. The Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Templar Hall have been completely wiped out. Hiss, they were so high and mighty that we all worshipped them. Now they have been completely wiped out by the Dragon King. 15 Cries of Sorrow. This time, the fallen gods are not only the last gods of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Templar Hall, but also the resurrected gods. They are on the wrong side. I thought that the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Templar Hall would be heavily attacked this time, but I didn't expect that in less than an hour, the two forces would be completely wiped off the face of the earth. The Dragon King is too powerful. In the future, even if someone ignited the divine fire, he wouldn't be able to contend with the Dragon King. Can everyone count how many gods have fallen at the hands of the Dragon King now? There are a total of 30 to 40 of them. When everyone heard Ao Crab's voice, their faces were filled with shock. Especially the 15 whales of the heavens and earth just now. Those voices caused the entire world to shake. The high and mighty gods, the gods who had lived for 100,000 years, died one after another. At this time, people thought of the gods that had fallen during this period of time. 90% of them were related to the Dragon King. In total, there were almost 30 to 40 of them. They looked like gods, but the Dragon King and the others had killed 30 to 40 of them. What kind of concept was this? Many people felt that they and the Dragon King were not in the same era. I didn't expect that our Lingxiao treasured palace would be completely destroyed and wiped out. How are we going to return to the boundless star field? The disciples who had followed the Lingxiao treasured palace to descend at that time trembled with despair on their faces. At that time, they had made a great decision and had paid a great price to descend here. No one had expected this outcome. Initially, they still had a glimmer of hope for the few gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace. Now they were in complete despair. Dragon King, wipe out all the remnants of the Holy Church. At this moment, Ao He, Ao Qi, and the rest arrived in the Dragon Palace and reported to Wang Xian. Have they been wiped out? How many gods are there in the world now? Wang Xian nodded with a smile and asked Prime Minister Gui. Dragon King, other than that young master from Shunfeng, there is only one god on earth now. Prime Minister Gui reported. Master, that god knows Shunfeng and once expressed his goodwill to me. His words shouldn't be a problem. Xiao Ran said to Wang Xian at this moment. The young master of the celestial race was also standing beside Xiao Ran. At this moment, he was extremely glad that he had made the choice. As expected, Old Yin was still more awesome than the Dragon King. Such strength would be considered a considerable force in the former Milky Way galaxy. It's the Dragon King. I'll talk to that god. How about we join the Dragon Palace in the future and become external members? I don't think he will reject us. Shen Feng also spoke up immediately. There's no need. If it's you guys, just join Xiao Ran's Dragon Gate Academy directly. Wang Xian said to Shen Feng. It's the Dragon King. Then, we'll join the Dragon Gate Academy. In the future, we'll build a powerful God Academy together with brother Xiao Ran. Shen Feng was delighted when he heard Wang Xian's words. He nodded immediately. When Xiao Ran heard his master's arrangements, he exchanged a glance with Ji Lingfei and revealed a smile. If 2 more gods joined the Dragon Gate Academy, their foundations would be comparable to the forces of the gods that descended back then. Dragon King, this is the starry sky chart that we obtained from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. The 2 starry sky charts are identical. At this moment, Prime Minister Gui walked over and handed the 2 starry sky maps to him. Can the pulling formation at the Lingxiao treasured palace still be restored? Wang Xian looked at the starry sky map with a glint in his eyes. Yes, Dragon King. Are we going to bring Earth into the boundless star field? Prime Minister Gui asked Wang Xian. If it's the boundless star field, we are going. As for Earth... Wang Xian pondered for a moment before saying, Xiao Ran, go and inform the world. If most of the people agree to let Earth go to the boundless galaxy, we will enter the boundless galaxy. If they don't want to go, we will leave Earth here. After all, Earth was their hometown. He was not going to make the decision to change the fate of everyone on Earth. If they wanted to enter the boundless galaxy, we could bring Earth there. If they didn't want to go, Wang Xian could also order the Dragon Palace to travel through the starry sky and head to the powerful galaxy. Yes, Master. Xiao Ran nodded. Also, as usual, the Dragon Palace rules the ocean and will not interfere in other matters. Wang Xian stood up slowly and said in the end. Xiao Ran and the rest nodded. They did not stay in the Dragon Palace any longer and flew out. Next, after we revive Ao Chitian and the rest, we will raise the strength of the members of the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian instructed Prime Minister Gui. This time, they had killed 15 gods and all the treasures in the sanctuary. The resources were not as much as the last time. However, there was the corpse of a god with 6 wisps of divine fire. After Ao Chitian and the others recovered, these resources could also increase the number of godly state experts in the Dragon Palace. In the outside world, after a battle that focused on the entire world, the Lingshao treasured palace and the Holy Church completely disappeared. While many people were discussing, the Dean of the Dragon Gate Academy announced something. Today, there would be a vote on the internet. The content of the vote would be whether Earth was willing to go in and head to the boundless star field. When this news spread out, it caused a huge sensation. When the gods brought Earth to the boundless galaxy, it caused a huge panic. With the people's understanding, they gradually calmed down. But even so, facing the unknown galaxy, they were still filled with confusion and didn't know what to do. Now, they were given the right to choose whether or not to enter the galaxy. I didn't expect the Dragon King to let us make a choice. It seems that even if we don't enter the boundless star field, the Dragon King and the others will go there on their own. I want to go there. According to the gods, that is the star field for cultivation. The divine sons and goddesses of the various starfield sects compete for glory. Powerful existences can destroy the stars with a wave of their hands. Only by entering the boundless starfield can we have the chance to become such an existence. There are benefits and disadvantages to entering the boundless starfield. If our Earth wants to improve, we must enter the boundless starfield. It proves that Earth has already walked quite a distance. We might as well go there directly. Countless people were discussing on the internet. Some young people of the younger generation wanted to continue traveling on Earth and wanted to venture into unknown starfields. And those disciples who had followed the gods to descend had excited expressions on their faces when they saw this scene. They still had a chance to return to the boundless starfield. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.